in the Paracast, the gold standard of paranormal radio. And now, here's Gene Steinberg.
This has been a week that I'd rather forget. Let me explain, listeners of the Paracast with Gene and Chris. Earlier this week, in case you had problems getting to our site or downloading the episode, it was because hackers were involved. And what they did is something we call in the industry a DDoS, distributed denial of service attack. What that means is you send loads of bogus requests to a site and you bring it down because you can only handle so much traffic. This is what's happening in the U.S. now with the healthcare exchanges where there's so much traffic they can't handle it. But of course you're dealing then with government computers that were sold from the lowest bidder or the one who bribed the government. So we can't expect perfection. But in our case, we just have one server. So I had to literally set up another server to move everything over. So I think we're okay now. The question is, why were we being attacked? I don't think it has anything to do with UFOs or the paranormal, because since moving the servers, things have been okay. Have they been for you, Chris?
Yeah, I just had problems a couple of days there, a few days ago trying to get on to the forum. But, the computer guru here is taking care of business.
Or whatever I am, yes. I'm not a computer guru. I just dabble. Speaking of dabble, let's dabble into a few other subjects before we get to our guest today. Dabble number one. We've got a few complaints that we didn't bring up when we had Don Schmidt. We didn't bring up the issue of questions about his background because he doesn't want to tell you he worked at the post office. I think that's the issue.
I thought you guys covered that back several years ago when he was last on. I seem to recall listening to the episode, and that was all covered. We're not a muckraker outfit here. We're interested in the subject matter, and that sort of thing kind of bogs you down. Obviously, there have been some issues about his background. Somebody mentioned on the forum that he also has fabricated something about his education. I was not aware of that. I was always under the impression that he had never really fessed up about what he did. It was more of a lie by omission as opposed to a fabrication. Now, Gene, you may know something more about this, but I just didn't think it was appropriate based on his prior appearance on the show explaining all that.
I don't think it rises to the equivalence of the issues we had with Phil Imbrogno, where just about everything in his background was a fake.
No, I thought he just didn't admit to people that he was a postman. And that to me is not a heinous crime. I
have to tell you this. I think being a postman, working for the post office, is an honorable profession. It carries a lot of trust. I think we trust everything to our postman, mailman, mail woman, mail person, or whatever. We trust them to bring us our bills. We trust them to bring our checks. We trust them to bring our packages. They don't get great pay. The U.S. Postal Service is always beleaguered because of money for one reason or another. So, I think he should be proud of the fact that he worked for the post office, but that's just me. Anyway, it is old ground. Let's pass it by. I would say, however, that the book itself is a well-written book. I don't think it's a smoking gun in there. It's got some intriguing theories. Leave it at that. So, for example, he dismisses Colonel Corso with regard to reverse engineering of the alleged wreckage from Roswell. But he cites an article from Tony Bragalia, one of the Roswell Dream Team members, and we'll have more to say on that in a moment, talking about reverse engineering this memory metal that restores itself to its previous shape. And I saw nothing there but references to military people who may or may not have had knowledge, but there's no smoking gun, no proof of anything. And it goes back to that, because when you talk about reverse engineering, you have to assume that the paper trail that we present over someone's invention is all been faked, or that we aren't smart enough to build this stuff by ourselves, or that we were somehow influenced at the last minute or in some ways by ET technology, but we have no proof. And I think that's part of the problem.
Well, the whole book is filled with with pretty compelling anecdotal information and deathbed testimonies, and they do a good job of sleuthing out individuals who, were at Right Pat at some point in time, and some of that is very compelling. But again, it's just all hearsay. We don't really have the, as you put it, smoking gun evidence to suggest that any of these scenarios can be proven. So I think the jury is still out. I think the book was a little bit kind of a bait and switch title, The Real Area 51, sort of a buzzword. It's all about Right Pat, and most of the information about Right Pat was about Roswell. So in one sense of the word, it's actually a book about Roswell, but it's what happened to everything after it allegedly left Roswell. So, again, this whole subject matter, Gene, is as many of our listeners know, I really have this sense that it's always been a red herring. Sure, it's an important case, but I think there's a lot more important things that could, stand a little focus, similar to what's being placed onto the Roswell case.
All right, let's talk about that. We have the Roswell Dream Team, and now we've got some sort of controversy over the Dream Team. Controversy over whether, I guess, they're falling apart because of disagreements?
Well, it all stems from the claim that two photographic slides have somehow magically appeared. I think it was here in Sedona in somebody's basement or attic or something. And wind of this got out to various members in the ufological community, but there was, I think, didn't Schmidt and Carey have to sign non-disclosure agreements in order to be brought into the loop on this? And then other members were not brought in, and it seems like there's a little bit of backbiting going on. It's a lot of posturing, it sounds like, until the actual photographs are analyzed. I think it's a tempest in a teapot. And the fact that the way it's being mishandled by the principals is putting a pall, I think, over the whole potential bombshell nature of this story. Again, I think I saw some commentary a day or two ago. Somebody equated it with the Alien Autopsy film, the Ray Santilli film, and it very well could be just the latest example of somebody trying to pull a fast one and make some dough. Obviously, money is involved here. There's some question of whether some major TV program or network has already optioned the rights to these photograph images. Again, until we see it, till it's analyzed, until we can find that curly phone cord or some telling piece of information that'll give away a hoax, or conversely, if we find something that's evidentiary and proves it to be real, the jury's still out, and I'm not impressed.
I'm not impressed by the fact that this was all made public. I think this is something where you quietly work on the evidence, you quietly deal with situations like this, and then you work amongst yourselves to resolve it. Because when you make it into a public spectacle, as it is, and we have a thread in our forums about it, and there are several blog entries about it, when you make it a public spectacle, you're not really solving anything. You're just messing around about the process, and it gets very boring real fast because, as I said, it's not leading us to a solution to Roswell. It's just muddying the waters all over again. And that's not muddy waters, by the way. Hey, we have a great guest for today. Tell us more about it.
Well, Gene, we have David Weatherly joining us for a return visit to the Paracast. He was on our very engaging show about the Skinwalker Ranch case. He was on along with Ryan Skinner a couple of years back. David is one of the people that have been looking into the claims of black-eyed children. He has a book on that subject, and also he has a new book called Strange Intruders. So I'm really looking forward to having David here and asking him some questions about some of these cool things that he investigates.
With Gene and Chris, you're in
the Paracast.
Neighbors, are you tired of dealing with a slow web hosting provider? Well, check out A2 Hosting and their screaming fast Swift server platform. They even have SSDs that load pages 300% faster than the competition. Ready to give your site a speed boost? Well, tell you what, neighbors, head on over to a2hosting.com. That's A2, that's the number 2, a2hosting.com. Check out their Prime hosting account. And get this, neighbors, they're even giving you an exclusive 25% off discount for all our listeners. 25%. And remember, their Guru Crew support team is standing by 24/7, 365 days a year to answer any of your questions. Now, to get the discount, use the coupon code Djinn when you check out.
Gold. It's like nothing else on Earth. From the Romans through the Renaissance, from the Industrial Age to the Space Age, gold has weathered the test of time. For 6,000 years, gold has remained the ultimate store of wealth. According to the World Gold Council and the U.S. Mint, demand is at an all-time high. The stage is being set for the reemergence of gold as the common-sense alternative to a fiat paper currency that gets weaker every day. Midas Resources is proud to offer the hard-hitting report that arms you with the truth you need to protect you and your family from the Fed's plans for your hard-earned money. Don't gamble with your future. Call Midas Resources today and ask for your free copy of As Good as Gold. Call 1-800-686-2237 for the report the Fed hopes you'll never see. As Good as Gold can be yours by calling 800-686-2237. If you have ever thought about owning gold, you must read this report. Call Midas today at 800-686-2237.
To thank you for being a loyal listener, we have a limited time freebie offer for you. Claim your free heirloom tomato seeds, just pay shipping, right now at 123freeseeds.com. These aren't ordinary seeds. These are heirloom, non-genetically modified super seeds that are open pollinated and can be grown, harvested, and replanted endlessly. These survival seeds are actually more valuable than gold in a crisis. Go to 123freeseeds.com and you can get an airtight storage packet of 150 super seeds free while supplies last to say thank you for being a loyal listener. First come, first served. Just cover shipping. Go to 123freeseeds.com now to see if your free heirloom seeds are still available. That's 123freeseeds.com.
A healthy digestive system supports a healthy immune system. And a healthy immune system protects you against infections and disease. Pro-EM1 Daily Probiotic Cleanse, available at Teraganix.com, is the key to digestive health. Pro-EM1 is a powerful liquid probiotic and is gentle enough to use every day. Pro-EM1 contains 3 groups of beneficial microbes and enzymes to cleanse and remove toxins, supports weight loss, improves absorption of food nutrients, and aids in controlling yeast and other infections. Pro-EM1 is dairy, wheat, and soy-free, is non-GMO, has all natural certified organic ingredients, has no preservatives, and is never freeze-dried. Pro-EM1 is the key to your digestive health. Order Pro-EM1 Daily Probiotic Cleanse at Teraganix.com, spelled Teraganix.com. Teraganix.com, or call toll-free 866-369-3678. That's 866-369-3678. Pro-EM1, the raw probiotic.
We'd like to hear from you. If you have a comment or question about the Paracast, send it to news@theparacast.com. That's news@theparacast.com. And don't forget to visit our famous Paracast community forums at forum.theparacast.com.
Here on the Paracast with Gene and Chris, we're going to look at strange intruders, black-eyed children, and all sorts of weird stuff with David Weatherly, who's making a return appearance on the Paracast. David, welcome to the show.
Gentlemen, thanks for having me on. It's a pleasure to be on with you guys.
Now, I understand here that you've been running after these things for a long, long time, this investigation. But Strange Intruders, in putting that book together, what did you focus on?
Strange Intruders focuses on essentially weird entity encounters. I tried to put some historical context in and talk about some, what are considered classic cases, and then a lot of modern encounters too, to give the sense that, there's a wide range of just weird beings that seem to be cropping up continually around the world. And, people are reporting more and more of these encounters as we keep moving forward.
Now, looking at these encounters, do they focus on a specific type of entity or being, or are they all over the place?
They're sort of all over the place. I had a handful of things I wanted to focus on with this book. For instance, I covered the Djinn, and that's something that I'm probably asked about more than any other topic over the last couple of years. So there's a whole chapter on the Djinn. There are chapters on shadow people. I cover the black-eyed beings a little bit more, just as a sort of a follow-up to my last book, and a few other miscellaneous things. I pretty much avoided classical cryptids. I don't talk about Sasquatch in this book or any of those types of more animal-oriented things. So these are basically it's oriented towards humanoid type of manifestations.
Let's look at that here. Why not focus on Bigfoot too? Those are strange creatures.
Yeah, they absolutely are. And, that's something I'll probably cover in a future book. But at some point, you have to put a cap on things. And, I think that the theme I tried to stick with in this book is essentially geared towards entities that I believe fit into this idea of things that are coming through portals or openings into other dimensions.
Okay, I don't understand the distinction here. So therefore, these beings might be coming in from other dimensions, but Bigfoot is native?
Well, most of the cryptids, I think, fall into some type of animal manifestations. Granted, there are some different paths we could go down with that. We could look at skinwalkers, for instance, which are, they're humanoid, but they're also considered cryptids by some people. It's, the lines are really blurry. So to be honest, it's kind of hard to say, where is this distinguished? I think the whole point was I just tried to stay away from the more animal type manifestations of beings and stick more to things that are attempting to appear somewhat human.
All right, let's talk about Djinn. And the reason I want to emphasize this is because we've had Rosemary Ellen Guiley on the show on several occasions, and she's made a huge point in covering that subject. But whenever we have her on, the people in the forums say, you know what, this is just folklore. Why are we dealing with this? So how do we take something that is perceived perhaps as folklore and make it relevant, make it current, make it something that really has relevance?
That's a great question. I think that the Djinn have become really prominent within the paranormal field in general over the last couple of years. Rosemary's done an incredible amount of work on the topic. Other people have been looking at it too. And it definitely does have a root in folklore. It also has a root in, the spiritual traditions of the Middle East because of the supposed origin of the Djinn. But what I find very fascinating is that, for 10 years or more, we've now had a constant Western military presence in the Middle East. Literally thousands of soldiers from the United States and the UK. And these men are interacting with these ancient societies that have always believed in the idea of the Djinn. And a lot of these soldiers, they're bringing back souvenirs and trophies and so forth that are purportedly haunted or bound to Djinn. This is kind of where the whole evolution of, the genie in the bottle silliness that we have in the West came from. This ancient principle that a magician could bind a Djinn to a particular object in order to have control over it. It would often be a piece of jewelry, a ring, a necklace, and so forth. So, all of that aside, we have modern interactions with these Middle Eastern people who are carrying these objects that, they say, okay, we've had this in our family for, 100 years. It has a powerful Djinn in it. I gift it to you or I sell it to you. And what's fascinating is that a lot of these soldiers are coming back home, they're coming back to the UK and the United States, and they're starting to experience very strange things in their lives.
This is every time they bring back these artifacts?
Well, it's not every time, but there are a lot of these cases at this point. And, it's kind of to the point where they're just a bit too many to completely ignore. Now, I always try to look at things completely open-minded. I'm not trying to convince anyone that, okay, here's a cursed ring that has a Djinn in it, and it's the cause of this person's misery. there could be a psychological component here. There could be, any number of reasons for it, but we can't deny the fact that there are a lot of these cases that are growing more and more around the country. And these people are experiencing very strange things in their lives. Like I said, poltergeist-like activity, illnesses in the family. And we're not talking about, just random everyday things. These things tend to crop up very suddenly and come in, large, dramatic expressions. And inevitably, in these cases, when someone comes around to the fact that, okay, well, I've got this, necklace that purportedly has a Djinn in it, and once that item is dealt with or taken away, the problems dissipate. Now, this is the chicken or the egg thing. Is it because that person really believed that the Djinn was with them and was somehow co-creating all of this, misery and bad luck in their lives? Or is there some type of entity actually attached to this thing that is causing these problems?
Can you describe what kind of artifacts in more detail? Is it just something that has the image of a Djinn? Obviously, I'm not thinking in terms of course, the bottle.
Right. Well, if you go back to the principle that was practiced among, quote, magicians during, the medieval period, the Renaissance period, a lot of different periods in history, there was this concept that through a ceremonial ritual, you could contact a powerful being, whether it was a demon or a Djinn, sometimes even an angel. You could contact that being, and through a specific set of rituals, you could bind it to a particular object. As I said, it was often a piece of jewelry. So, for instance, they would create a ring. They would go through a ritual process to contact a Djinn and bind this thing to this ring.
Maybe the Djinn were responsible for our server problems, for the hacker problems. Who knows? We have David Weatherly joining us, talking about Djinn and more, and not the kind that you drink. With Gene and Chris, you're in
the Paracast.
Are you tired of searching for great talk radio?
Something more important.
Search no more. We are the GCN Radio Network.
If you want to get your website online and you need reliable service, first-class service at the lowest possible price, there's only one place to go. Well, DreamHost has a special promotion with our show where they'll offer you unlimited disk space, unlimited bandwidth, one-click web apps such as WordPress, 24/7 support. You can save over $55. You want to know how? Go to dreamhost.com/radio, dreamhost.com/radio.
First came Attack of the Rockoids, and it was a critically acclaimed success. And now there's The Coming of the Protectors. A former military intelligence man is contacted by a space woman in a dream that turns out to be a nightmare because evil forces on her distant planet are planning to conquer the Earth. This is gripping science fiction of the classic kind. Attack of the Rockoids and The Coming of the Protectors. Find out more at rockoids.com. That's Rockoids, ROCKOIDS.com.
For over 5 years, you've been hearing about the Berkey guy, so you may know a few things about him. For example, you are well aware of the superior quality and effectiveness of Berkey water filters and accessories. But did you know the Berkeys have had independent lab tests done to prove just how effective they are? It's true, and he can email you the test results. Just visit goberkey.com. You may also know that the Berkey guy has helped tens of thousands of people get better prepared. Now here's something you may not know. GoBerkey.com has amazing specials and deals all the time on a wide variety of survival and preparedness products. Most ready to ship same day. Visit the Berkey Guy at GoBerkey.com and be sure to click the red Products on Sale Now button. You can always call toll-free 877-886-3653. Again, that's 877-886-3653. GoBerkey.com, home of the Berkey Guy.
It's time for a home security quiz. What effective home security device is smaller than a coffee cup, fakes out burglars into thinking someone is home at your house while you're away, plugs into any wall outlet, is recommended by many police departments, and sells for less than $30? Yes, it's Fake TV. This year, about 1 in every 50 U.S. homes will have a break-in, with burglars usually picking the easy target, a dark house that looks like no one is home. Fake TV is a small electronic security device that makes it look like someone is home watching TV by simulating the light from a real TV. Fake TV could be the difference between coming home to a secure house or one that's been ransacked. To get your Fake TV for only $29.95 with free shipping, go to faketv.com or call 1-877-5-FAKE-TV. That's 877-532-5388. Or go to faketv.com. Fake TV, the burglar deterrent.
Weakened by GMOs, stressed out about money, and blasted by the electric environment. Hi, I'm Pastor Jenny, and that was the state I was in back in 2010. Then I learned about RNA drops. I learned that 97% of my DNA that scientists have called junk is actually packed with millions of gene switches that play a critical role in controlling how my cells, organs, and other tissues behave. I learned I don't have to put up with disease, decay, or decline like I'd been conditioned to believe. I began taking RNA drops, a 100% natural formula designed to turn on those switches and provide me with amazing health and joy. Learn more about RNA drops and order a free sample today. Visit rnafreesample.com. That's rnafreesample.com or call toll-free 888-577-3703. Pay only shipping and handling for a free 30-day supply of RNA drops. Get the information you need and the health you want at rnafreesample.com.
Hi, this is Don Ecker, and you are tuned into the Paracast. Let me tell you what, you're going to hear stuff here that you probably won't hear anywhere else. Hear that, George Snorri?
I can't resist that statement, about gin, therefore it's something we drink. Maybe I'm thinking of my late friend Jim Mosley, who always had a glass, but usually whiskey. That was his favorite drink. Okay, so you're saying in these ceremonies, the gin, is it the power, the essence, is bound to a necklace or a bracelet or something? Does that mean that it becomes part of it or what?
It essentially becomes imprisoned by it. So if you go back to original, jinn lore from the Islamic text, you'll find that when the jinn, and let me back up for anybody who doesn't know, classically the whole mythos of the jinn was that they were one of the three races created by Allah, the other two being angels and humans. And so when Allah came along and ordered that the jinn had to bow down to the superiority of humans, they refused. And in their refusal, they were banished. Now, the banishment in this tradition is that they were, it sounds like they were sent into another dimension almost. Essentially, they were just forced off the human plane in terms of walking around physical beings like we are. And as a result, the jinn are said to be able to exist within anything. It's just that you can't see them. They're these sort of invisible beings. So when you go to the Middle East, you'll find that there are a lot of abandoned buildings and even historical sites like Petra that are purportedly, inhabited by jinn. And as a result of this, these beings exist in the world all around us. Somewhere along the way, magicians got the idea that, you can contact these beings and bind them to a particular object. In other words, imprison them by connecting them permanently to a ring or a necklace and so forth.
Is that where the legend of the genie in the bottle comes from?
Yeah, it sure is. It sure is. That's the westernized version. And, in the West, we've come to be conditioned to believe these things are sort of a joke. I mean, you say gin now in the West, and first of all, most people don't know what you're talking about. They, like you said, Gene, they think you're talking about a bottle of liquor. But when you say genie, a couple of things come to mind. Either the goofy Disney cartoon, or if you're a little bit older like I am, then you automatically think of, I Dream of Jeannie, this bungling blonde in harem pants, coming out of a bottle.
Yeah, with no belly button.
Right.
I was about to say that. Great insane minds think alike. That because of the nature of TV in those days, you couldn't show a belly button. But if you've seen a picture of Barbara Eden, and she's got to be 80 years of age, she looks like, 50 or something. It's amazing. So she has magical powers. I believe that.
Yeah, and she can still get into the genie outfit.
Right.
Very odd. Yeah, so, we're conditioned in the West to think that these things are a joke and that they're just, sort of silly or comical and that, they're part of this mythology. Oh, you find a bottle and you rub it and you get 3 wishes. But really, when you start studying a lot of the ancient lore of these beings, you'll find that they're much more sinister. It gets pretty complex when you really delve
Very
in.
complex. There's whole classes of genies. They have societies.
Yeah.
Some of them, they're divided up into colors. Certain colors are more powerful than others, and there's fewer of them. They have lifespans. There's quite a mythology that's around it. And David, your whole point of this cross-cultural connection of soldiers returning with objects that may somehow be associated with these types of forces or the belief in these entities, I find that fascinating because normally if you're not a believer in something, at least consciously, that will have an effect somewhat. But what you're describing sounds like it could be some sort of support for the whole phenomenon.
Yeah, I definitely think so, and that's sort of my approach to the whole topic. And I think again we've got so many of these cases that are cropping up now that I don't think we can just brush it aside and say all these people are imagining things. And when you look at the context of what's happened over the last 10 years or so and the increased interaction with those cultures in the Middle East, then it becomes quite compelling to start comparing that with the idea that we've got all these people that are experiencing these weird things from some type of interaction with whether it's an artifact or a cursed object or whatever it is.
Well, I've noticed that Rosemary Guiley is jumping more and more into this idea that Djinn are being misidentified in the West, and that they're being phenomenal events and poltergeist type activity and more negative hauntings, let's say. I think she's becoming more and more convinced that these are actually Djinn. What do you think of this? Do you think that everything that's happening out there could be ascribed to a Djinn, or do you feel that this is just a more kind of a Middle Eastern interpretation of something that exists everywhere and has a different face and a different tag in each culture?
Well, I think you hit it right on the head there, Chris. Rosemary's a great friend, and she's done some incredible research on the topic. We don't agree on absolutely everything. I mean, she is taking the approach that the Djinn are essentially responsible for just about anything. And when you go into the lore of these beings, you'll find that, for instance, they can shapeshift. So, technically they can take any form, whether that be a gray alien or a Sasquatch or whatever. But, I don't think that I'm not so quick to jump on the idea that one specific phenomena is responsible for everything we're experiencing in the paranormal world. I think that we definitely do have to consider cultural interpretations. And it's really interesting to see how these things are developing with the fact that the world is rapidly become more and more interconnected. It wasn't so long ago on this planet that, the average person really had no idea anything about the Middle East. And, now we've got such an interaction with world cultures at a rapid pace that these traditions and these concepts are starting to cross-pollinate and travel around the world at a rapid pace. So I think, like you're saying, we're definitely looking at a cultural interpretation of some type of phenomena. That's just what the Middle Eastern peoples described it as, this concept of these Djinn. You go to other areas, go to the parts of Europe, the Celtic lands, and you'll find that it's the wee folk, the Fae are responsible for a lot of the mischief and the strange things that happen, whether it's strange lights in the sky, those are fairy lights. Troubled poltergeist-like activity, you probably, irritated the wee people. So, you have to consider those things. And I think it's fascinating to see as I said, has all these cultures, continue to mix and intermingle, how our perception of these things is starting to develop.
Well, would you interpret this then in terms of your cultural conditioning? Therefore, maybe we're using Djinn also as an excuse. So nowadays you talk about lights in the sky. So we live in a science fiction culture. Do we take Djinn phenomena as being a UFO? Can there be a relationship? Now, we have only about a minute left in this segment, so maybe we can start the answer here, then move it on to the next segment. David?
Well, the basic answer is that, yes, there are people that would argue that UFO manifestations are a result of Djinn activity.
All right. Even when they seem to be physical, what about the physical manifestations of UFOs? Trace evidence, things in the ground, people seeing entities around them, photographing them. Still Djinn?
If I was playing devil's advocate and arguing that everything was Djinn, I could definitely say that, yeah. I mean, it's not my personal viewpoint, but when you look at Djinn lore, according to those traditions, that is definitely possible because they can manifest as anything they choose to.
So they take on a physical aspect is what you're saying, and therefore, oh boy. Oh, this is getting really crazy. By the way, ladies and gentlemen, David Weatherly is joining us. He has a new book out, which is called Strange Intruders, and we've talked about black-eyed children, and right now we're talking about Djinn and more with Gene and Chris. You're in
the Paracast. The GCN Radio Network, providing the world with hard-hitting talk radio. GCN. Great talk radio starts here.
Is there a secret UFO agenda? Do strange creatures from the darkest corners of the mind roam the earth? Is there evidence for mind control, time travel, or devious government conspiracies? Find out the inside scoop on the latest conspiracies, paranormal activity, and Freudian phenomena when you subscribe to Tim Beckley's Conspiracy Journal. It's jam-packed with stories, special book and DVD promotions, and the best news, it's absolutely free, sent right to your mailbox. Plus, a bonus free email newsletter sent out every Friday. Simply send an email with your name and address to Mr. UFO at webtv.net. That's Mr. UFO at webtv.net. Find out what they don't want you to know.
This is an emergency essentials sale. This month only at Emergency Essentials. Get 41% off freeze-dried chicken with a 25-year shelf life for only $24.99 while supplies last. During our October sale, 55-gallon water barrels are only $72.99. Our 12-can baking combo, valued at over $160, is now only $109.99. That's 32% off. Call Emergency Essentials at 800-999-1863 today or visit BePrepared.com. The choice is clear. Be unprepared or BePrepared.com.
That's the sound of a .44 Magnum and Trauma Max, a high-tech hybrid Kevlar bulletproof vest from InfidelBodyArmor.com. Will stop it and most pistol rounds. Trauma Max is a major breakthrough in pistol-rated body armor, and prices start at just $170 per insert. More protection, more stopping power, more mobility, and it weighs less than 5 pounds. Get details at InfidelBodyArmor.com. That's INFIDEL BodyArmor.com.
We live in a complicated society. Stressful issues are always popping up. Have you ever been treated unfairly by someone? Have you ever been overcharged for a repair? Have you ever signed a contract or a document? Worried about identity theft? How many times have you been in those unique situations where you just wanted to call an attorney to find out if you're right or wrong, or what your legal rights are? But every time you think about calling an attorney, what do you think about first? That's right. Who do you call, and how much will it cost? Our friends at Legal Shield have found a solution. With a nationwide network of 6,900 attorneys who average over 19 years of experience, Legal Shield's law firms take over 40,000 calls per week helping their members. For less than $20 per month, you can have access to Legal Shield on everything from the trivial to the traumatic. Let Legal Shield stand up for your rights at lsprotection.com. That's lsprotection.com. Or call 855-340-SAVE, 855-340-7283.
A little over a year ago, I began to do a lot of research into why, even if I had a pretty good-sized meal, that I was still starving. And my research led me to a well-known fact that most of the soils that we grow our crops on here in the United States and across the industrialized world are almost completely depleted of almost all of the key minerals and trace elements that our bodies need to rebuild themselves, fight off cancer, and be healthy. I then searched out the best vitamin and mineral company out there and discovered Youngevity. The Youngevity products are designed to give you the real nutrition you need, and once you've got that, you don't have to eat as much to be satisfied. I've lost 37 pounds in 2 months, simply getting the vitamins and minerals I need. Check it out for yourself. It's incredible. Go to InfoWarsTeam.com today and order your first canister of Beyond Tangy Tangerine Complete Multivitamin Mineral Complex Dietary Supplement. That's InfoWarsTeam.com.
This is Kurt Sutherland, the author of UFO Mysteries, and you're listening to the Paracast.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm not asking you to take your belief system and place it at the door and listen. But David Weatherly has some fascinating theories to voice, one of which is when we say Djinn, we're interpreting it in the Middle East culture, but if we look at European cultures, American cultures, I assume then that the Native Americans have legends that are related to this too, right?
Oh, sure. I mean, they don't call them the Djinn, obviously, but, various native tribes will talk about different types of spiritual beings. It's not commonly known, around the world, but a lot of native tribes have legends of little people. And, that's, in most people's minds, that's specific to Ireland and the Celtic region. But that's not the case. We find little people traditions around the world. Hawaii has the Menehune. You go to the Northeast, you'll find the Pukwudgies. So, these are sort of global concepts that, crop up in cultures all over the place.
Okay, now the big question people ask, the people interested in physical phenomena, with all these legends, and maybe we can find a singular cause, whatever you want to label it, Djinn, whatever, how the heck can we prove it? Before we even get to the black-eyed children and the Slenderman and all that, how do we prove Djinn?
Oh, wow. I don't know if I have an answer for that because, everyone's concept of what constitutes proof is going to be different. A skeptic wouldn't believe in Sasquatch if one picked him up and carried him away. But
that might be something you could hope for.
That would be great. But, a believer is, content just with the idea that these things exist. So I think that individuals have to find their own comfortable place with what constitutes proof for them.
So this is not something that you can expect any centralized scientific consensus on.
Maybe eventually, because I think what we're seeing with the development of the quantum sciences is a reach towards sort of spiritual and mystical concepts. So I think eventually some of those things are going to start to interact to a pretty large degree. And I can give you an example of that. There's this concept of portals that you'll find all over the world. You go to different cultures and you'll find this legend about a race of beings that lived here with us, and at some point they left. Now, ancient alien theorists will jump on that and say, well, that was the aliens that came down and tinkered around and then left in their spaceships. But really, what you more often find in a lot of these tales is that, these beings were here and they left through, a hole in the ground or a shimmering doorway and so forth. And that, for me personally, that translates as some type of dimensional travel or some type of portal that they're traveling through. And that sounds like fantasy or science fiction to a lot of people. But when you back up a little bit and consider that, in the last few years, the quantum sciences and, these different string theories and so forth are looking at concepts of other dimensions existing. There's PhDs that have come forward and say, okay, we now believe and theorize that there are other dimensions of existence. There are at least 12, or whatever the number they're saying is. We don't know how to get to them or what they look like, but we know they're there.
When you say that, you talk about creatures that abandoned us maybe a few thousand years ago. I think of Dero, Richard Shaver's Dero and Tiro, where the people who were left behind for whatever reason entered the caverns. But wouldn't you think that maybe even Shaver's Deros were based on similar legends?
Probably so. A lot of native cultures, have these legends of creatures that went underground at some point. Sometimes they're described as reptilians, and I know that hits a real nerve with a lot of people these days. But, this concept, this cultural image that we have, it's really been around for a very, very long time. And a lot of times people lose track of the historical context of these things because they focus on the, whatever the current meme is. So a good example of that is, you mentioned alien now, spaceman or alien. The image that's automatically conjured in the minds of most people is what? The little gray alien with the big head and the black eyes. But, you trace that back and you'll find that when Strieber released Communion in '87, with that really iconic cover of that gray alien, that really firmed that concept in everyone's consciousness. Okay, this is what the aliens look like.
So basically, he contributed to the perception that there were gray aliens.
He did, but he certainly did not create it, because we can start tracing that backwards. For instance, in 1901, H.G. Wells released The First Men in the Moon. And he describes in that book the Selenites, these beings that live underground. They have gray skin, large heads, and huge round black eyes. So, this is I think a lot of these images that exist in people's subconscious mind going way back to early lore of, whether it's tribal or whatever. And it just gets sort of rebirthed on occasions and brought to a different contemporary level.
You also have the iconic image of Lamb from 1919, I believe, with Aleister Crowley.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, yeah. And so, the point is, you can find those images all throughout history if you really take the time to research it and start tracing it backwards. And I honestly don't know, where the first iteration of that image came from. It was probably something from some tribal lore somewhere that eventually just evolved to its current stage. But even the conditions of the interactions with these beings, we see that sort of rebirth on a constant level too. And an example of that is, you look at contemporary abduction accounts and you start correlating that with fairy lore from Ireland, and the comparisons are pretty compelling. Missing time, lights in the sky, different physical interactions. It's just pretty amazing stuff. So we could easily say that, the current interpretation that we're having of these experiences with these, whatever these beings are that we're describing as gray aliens, really goes back much further in history too.
So what you're doing here is taking the legend of the Djinn and making it more up close and personal.
Well, I think that's what's happened, and just by conditions. We're seeing sort of a renaissance in the concept of the Djinn right now.
Well, I think also what we have here, unfortunately, in this country is we don't want to look at legends of things from the Middle East. And there are religious concerns over that, as you might know.
Sure. Yeah, I would agree with that. And, I think that the other side of that is that there's a general reluctance in much of the U.S. to really look at things in depth anyway. We sort of live in a fast food culture where people want these instant answers. You can buzz through a drive-through and get your, supersized meal in a couple of minutes. Why should you spend much time delving into the lore of these weird happenings? And, I'm certainly not saying that everyone is like that, but again, it goes to conditioning and what people are used to. And, I travel a lot, and I find that the United States is very unique in that people here really want instant answers.
There's no patience for anything.
No.
So unfortunate, isn't it? It also makes it difficult because if you have something that's a long-range phenomenon, and what you're talking about are just UFOs in general, strange creatures, anything, these things have been going on for years, and we keep begging for an answer yesterday. And obviously those of us who have been chasing these things for a long, long time, and you have, 35 years under your belt?
That's correct, yeah.
Okay. You've been chasing it for many years. We know Chris has several decades. I've been around it for a few hundred years. That we're not expecting any immediate answers. Of course, sometimes the big frustration is not that we don't have immediate answers, but that we're not making an awful lot of progress over the years. It seems as if we keep asking the same questions. We continue posing the same theories. We continue having the same disputes, and we got into some of those disputes in the section of the show before you got on. So it gets to be downright frustrating, but we're going to try, we're going to persevere, we're going to ask more about these weird creatures, these strange intruders. In our next segment, David Weatherly joins us on the Paracast this week. By the way, you can check us out on Twitter. We hardly mention that. We're known on Twitter as the Paracast, and there's a Paracast fan club on Facebook that we don't mention very often either. That's because with Gene and Chris, you're in
the Paracast.
America's #1 source for independent talk radio for over a decade. We are the GCN Radio Network.
Hi, this is Ted Anderson. If you'd like to listen to GCN programs on the go, I have great news. GCN has created a Droid and iPhone application, and it's free. Just as easy as going to GCNlive.com, click on the banner, and download. Before you know it, you'll be listening to your favorite hard-hitting GCN shows, live or on demand, right on your Droid or iPhone, 24/7 and on the go. So download the Droid and iPhone app free by clicking on the banner at GCNlive.com. Thanks again for listening to GCNlive.com. Again, that's GCNlive.com. Hi, this is Ted Anderson. Have you ever wondered why banks, stockbrokers, investment advisors won't talk about gold IRAs? They've been available since 1986, yet the financial industry won't recognize the value of gold for your retirement. Gold has outperformed paper investments, yet no word about IRAs. If you would like to have gold for your retirement, call 800-686-2237. Don't get left behind by rising inflation and low returns. Call 800-686-2237. Secure your future and call 1-800-686-2237.
The National Preppers and Survivalist Expo, presented by Triton Shelter Technologies, is the only national event designated for the prepper community. October 19th and 20th at the North Atlanta Trade Center in Atlanta, Georgia. Admission is free, and the doors open at 9 a.m. Join us and learn life-saving tips that can help you and your family handle crisis situations. Special guests include Kevin O'Brien from Nat Geo's Doomsday Preppers, David Crawford, author of Lights Out, the director and cast members from the movie Lights Out Saga, and more. Special guest speakers include GCN's own Dr. Joel Wallach, along with Dr. Bones, Nurse Amy, and Tom Martin, the director of the American Preppers Network, two-time Field and Stream champion Chad Weatherford, along with many other leading experts from around the country. Join us for the country's largest emergency preparedness event, absolutely free, October 19th and 20th at the North Atlanta Trade Center in Atlanta, Georgia. For more information, visit npsexpo.com. That's npsexpo.com.
Welcome back to the Paracast, the gold standard of paranormal radio. And now, here's Gene Steinberg.
On the Paracast with Gene and Chris, David Weatherly making his encore appearance here. His latest book, Strange Intruders. Now, before we go on, let me ask you about that title. Intruders, that implies evil or harmful.
It does. And, it's sort of based on the concept that most of these beings that I cover in this book are, they're certainly unwanted visitors. They come in very suddenly into people's lives, and, hence the title Intruders.
Okay, but coming in unwanted, does that mean they want to do us harm? Or are we just frightened because they're strange?
What I really focused on in this book was beings that seem to have a more sinister agenda, or at the least were causing very unsettling and disturbing periods in people's lives.
So an example, obviously you mentioned the soldiers who bring back an artifact or a necklace or jewelry that's been infected or infused with a Djinn. What other things do we see happening?
As far as other beings that are covered in this, I cover the shadow people too. And this is something that, has floated around in the paranormal world for a long time, no pun intended. And once again, a lot of those who are studying this Djinn lore are now interpreting the shadow people as, this is just a manifestation of the Djinn. I really feel it's something completely separate. And these encounters, they're called shadow beings because they literally look like the shadow of a person. However, they move independently of physical people.
As opposed to looking like a fictional shadowy character.
Right.
Called fiction, okay.
Right. So, these are shadow forms that seem to have a life of their own. And this is something that, picked up a lot of steam in the past several years with the introduction of all the ghost hunting shows. You occasionally see these guys go out and talk about shadow people and haunted locations that are plagued by shadow men and so forth. And they're always presented as these sort of dark, sinister figures that are coming in to cause misery in people's lives. And I receive a lot of accounts of these things. They're pretty much falling in the same category. Someone will begin to see the manifestation of this shadow being in their room. And it's very intriguing in that part of the time it seems to border on stories similar to the whole night hag lore. These beings that come in just as someone is falling asleep. There's sometimes sleep paralysis is involved. And you really have to wonder what psychologically is going on with people that are experiencing these things, because they're convinced that they've had a real physical experience. There aren't that many cases where multiple people are seeing these things at the same time, which certainly leads to believe that there's something going on within the specific people that are having the experience. There are some cases where a shadow being is seen multiple times by different people. Some haunted locations like Waverly Hills, that has a famous shadow figure that shows up, and a lot of people have purportedly experienced it and caught photographs of it and so forth.
Parenthetically, David, have you noticed how these days images of cultural influences, strange events, fairy tale type phenomenon have become infused in our society? So we have hit TV shows like Once Upon a Time, which takes off your fairy tale characters and gives them kind of a realistic aspect to them. We have also, Once Upon a Time in Wonderland, which is Alice in Wonderland. We have Sleepy Hollow, where Ichabod Crane and the Headless Horseman are transported through time, and we get all sorts of shadowy creatures running around. Mm-hmm. And we're getting all this in our society. Is it just a trend? This is what sells in TV these days, or is there something more?
I think that there are two answers to that. One is that, it is, it's definitely a trend, but, which came first? Because it's also a trend because so many people are interested in the paranormal. And, an interesting thing happened in the course of all of this television, reality entertainment and its development. And that's that the paranormal went from being a virtually taboo subject to being part of pop culture. And in the midst of that evolution, we've had people, go from being absolutely tight-lipped and refusing to talk about their weird experiences to being more than happy to discuss every little, odd bump and noise that they've heard in the night. So, I always joke that after being in this field for so long that, when I started, it was really difficult to get people to interact and relate their, accounts and their experiences to me. You had to work at it.
Yeah,
and,
it's becoming more mainstream.
It's very mainstream. And, my joke is that when I started in this field, if I walked in a party and said I was a paranormal investigator, I was guaranteed to have a nice quiet evening by myself the rest of the night because everyone was like, yeah, that guy is really weird, stay away from him. But now I can walk into a party and if I say that, man, the reaction is the opposite. They're lined up out the door because everyone's got a story that they want to relate to me, and some of them are,
David, what do you equate that to? Do you think that we're seeing a dichotomy, sort of a ivory tower, sort of stovepipe scientific knowledge is going so far beyond the comprehension of most people that people are starting to kind of have a knee-jerk reaction the opposite direction towards superstition, interpretation, folklorish interpretations of things that they don't understand? Do you think that this modern era might be the cause of that?
Chris, I think that's part of it. I mean, we've got a variety of things that have contributed. One is the television shows we're talking about. It's made it so much a part of the mainstream that people are now comfortable saying, oh, yeah, I saw, the ghost of Aunt Matilda or whatever. So people are, more than willing to share those experiences. We also have a lot of people that are really anxious to believe that these things, are happening and that they've had some kind of experience that is unexplainable or is paranormal. So, you will get these stories where, I'm sleeping and I got up the next morning, my coffee cup was moved. And I know it's the ghost of my dad because only he would move that coffee cup. And, so you get some silliness like that, but it's people that are really reaching for something to believe in. And, like you're saying, Chris, there's a certain degree of people reverting back to a more primal set of beliefs. But my God, we've got science now that is saying that they're not sure how to explain things or how to reach further. And these quantum sciences, they're trying to find the God particle and things like this. So, it's as if the rubber band is getting stretched very far and people are just reaching in multiple directions at the same time because they need something more and something that resonates at a deeper, almost spiritual level.
Does that also possibly explain this anti-science attitude on the part of some people? It may be because of their political or religious persuasion, but it doesn't matter what you say. The Earth is 6,000 years old. Doesn't matter that we have the prehistoric artifacts. We should be teaching creationism in schools. So whatever science has more or less accepted as settled over the years, now you have people saying, no, that's not so. Let's go back to what we believed 100, 200, 500 years ago. And maybe then we should also have, flat Earth theories, that the Earth is really flat. It's not really round. The Earth is the center of the universe. And that's it. We're the chosen people. So we should live back in, the 15th century. But that's a belief system. And I think part of it is that maybe science has failed people because people are overwhelmed with the disclosure of the day, so they want to go back to something simpler. We'll find out more with David Weatherly. And Gene and Chris, you're in
the Paracast.
So here's what happened. I was placing an order online. The site went down. It just stopped responding. It took hours before it returned, but I'd already placed the order with another company. If your site goes down, you could lose business. And if you have a business or personal site, you'll want to know it's easy to run and it will stay online. At iWeb, your site is hosted on one of the most reliable networks in the world. Check it out. iWeb.com. That's iWeb.com.
First came Attack of the Rockoids, and it was a critically acclaimed success. And now there's The Coming of the Protectors. A former military intelligence man is contacted by a space woman in a dream that turns out to be a nightmare because evil forces on her distant planet are planning to conquer the Earth. This is gripping science fiction of the classic kind. Attack of the Rockoids and The Coming of the Protectors. Find out more at rockoids.com. That's Rockoids, ROCKOIDS.com.
Hi, this is Gary Cooper with Midas Resources Gold and Silver. Government shutdown, inept politicians, entitlements, looming Obamacare. The death of the U.S. dollar as a global reserve currency is what nobody wants to acknowledge. We have a debt bubble that cannot be paid and will eventually crash the dollar. If you're concerned about keeping your money, why not consider storing your wealth in gold and silver? Call me, Gary Cooper, at 1-800-686-2237, extension 130. Together we'll discuss your options of buying gold and silver. Again, the global elite have plans for your money, and it doesn't include you. So call me, Gary Cooper, at 1-800-686-2237, extension 130, and we'll discuss your options of buying precious metals. Also, I can send you information on how you can roll over your IRA or 401k into a precious metal IRA. Again, don't get caught with money in your account when the dollar crashes. Call me, Gary Cooper, at 1-800-686-2237, extension 130.
The fall season is here. Falling downstairs, bad. Fallback pricing, good. Don't fall down the stairs. Go to freezedryguy.com. Vote for special fallback pricing on delicious freeze-dried foods and dehydrated foods. Vote early. Vote often. Through October 10th. Tell us which product to put on sale. Then, beginning October 11th, Fallback Friday, the price of the product with the most votes will be on sale with special fallback pricing. Missing out on a sale on emergency preparedness food, camping food, or backpacking food? Bad. Storing delicious freeze-dried entrees, fruits, vegetables, and desserts? Good. Go to freezedryguy.com. Vote now through October 10th for fallback pricing. Voting for politicians who expose themselves? Bad. Voting for fallback pricing at freezedryguy.com? Good. Go to freezedryguy.com.
Every time you eat a cooked food, your body responds by producing an increase in circulating white blood cells. This happens because nature designed us to eat food that is undamaged at the molecular level. When we heat food to normal cooking temperatures, we change the shape of the molecules into shapes the body cannot use. The body now looks at them as toxins and allergens. In an effort to protect itself from this irritant, the body intelligently increases the amount of circulating white blood cells to act as garbage collectors. The white blood cells gobble up all the unusable damaged food particles to neutralize their cell-damaging properties. This puts stress on your organs of elimination, and your body is subject to cell damage and inflammation. If you'd like to start experiencing the benefits of undamaged protein in your diet, give One World Whey a try. It is a truly undamaged protein powder that will thrill your tastes and every cell of your body. Call 888-988-3325. That's 888-988-3325. Or visit oneworldwhey.com.
We'd like to hear from you. If you have a comment or question about the Paracast, send it to news@theparacast.com. That's news@theparacast.com. And don't forget to visit our famous Paracast community forums at forum.theparacast.com.
So I brought this up because Popular Science magazine recently, with their online forums, they blocked comments to scientific articles. They turned off the comments machine. You know, like you go to a blog or something, there's always a comments panel. Or like we have forums over at forum.theparacast.com. And they did that because a small subset of people were just getting in there and starting flame wars over things that we pretty much accept in science, complaining about everything, the so-called anti-science crowd. So David Weatherly, as our society grows, do we find people seeking the simpler life when we didn't have all this? And does that explain the anti-science attitude we see?
I think that's a portion of it. I mean, you have to consider, too, that the rapid development in technology, it really has overwhelmed people. My gosh, for people like us that, went from little black and white televisions and color was a big deal. And, now you can walk around with a little handheld device and watch, television from Asia in your hand if you want to. The rate at which technology has grown, and it really has overwhelmed a lot of people. I think that, we have a lot of people now that are reaching for something that is just more, earthy, I guess, for lack of a better word, something that feels more tangible that they can place their faith and belief in. And as a result, we have a lot of people turning back to, different expressions of religions and spiritual traditions that sort of strip away all of these modern concepts. And science certainly is at the top of the list when they start pushing those things away and rejecting them. Some of it's political at times, but, other times people are just connecting all of these various threads into their religious concepts. How many things do we hear now on a regular basis that, must be evidence of the mark of the beast? And these are people that really are also looking for something that is transformative, because with the conditions in the world right now, particularly in the West, with the crushing economy and all these different things, I think a lot of people want an escape. They want something that is going to provide relief from these things that they just have no control over within their lives. So as a result, they turn back to, more spiritual, and sometimes, you might want to term it superstitious beliefs. But if it works for them and it brings some kind of balance in their lives, well, who are we to say that's wrong?
Going to the theory that our scientific and technological development has gone beyond our spiritual development, and we got to get things into balance again.
Right, exactly.
I'm going to take this a step further and pose the question: do you think that this cultural kind of pulling back towards more basic sort of human superstitions and explanations to attempt to explain these mysteries that are not considered scientific in nature, do you think that we could actually see manifestation of new types of phenomenal creatures, events, similar to the black-eyed children? Now, this is a fairly recent, correct me if I'm wrong, but this is a fairly recent interpretation, and these encounters, I think, are fairly recent. And we have a question from one of our forum posters, Jeff Davis, and he brings up an interesting point. He said, when I first started reading of the black-eyed children via Jason Offutt or Lon Strickler, yourself, is where he thinks he first read about a, quote, single individual camping trip black-eyed children report, and the same person that reported the incident stated later that it was a self-admitted hoax from someone that liked to fool people over with his campfire stories. And they seem to think that this originated on Above Top Secret or some other form of that nature. So his question is, how have you substantially overcome this aspect of the black-eyed children saga to the effect where you felt it merited further investigation? Was this a hoax, as the man who wrote the article stated? Or was that itself some sort of type of false communication? And I would add, or are we seeing the emergence of a new type of paranormal phenomenon?
Wow, a lot of questions within that. Let me see.
That's about two shows right there, so we can take our time.
Well, very basic. Could this have started out as a hoax and now has a life of its own?
I don't think so. The reason I don't think so is because, going back to what I was talking about earlier in the show, what I do believe is that we're seeing a modern manifestation of something that we've seen before. And it just so happens that it has taken the form of these, strange kids with the solid black eyes that are showing up at people's homes. A lot of people tend towards the idea that this is a modern urban legend, but it really, I found evidence that says that it's not. I'm not familiar with the story that he references about a camping trip. I'm not sure. Maybe that was one of Jason's accounts that he collected, or Lon's. But the earliest account that usually is credited with starting the sort of modern wave of these things is the Brian Bethel account. Now, that showed up on the internet in 1998, and Bethel was a journalist in Texas who went out one evening to write a check and drop it in a drop box at a shopping mall. And as he's sitting in his car writing his check, these two kids approached his car. And he was kind of nervous initially and only rolled his window down just a little bit and asked him what they wanted. And this interaction was just odd. They were asking him for a ride to their home so they could get money to see a movie. And Bethel had the consciousness to look over the marquee and see that the movie they wanted to see was, more than half over. So nothing was making sense about this interaction. And during the course of it, they made eye contact with him, and he realized, oh my God, these kids have solid black eyes. This is, too much. It sort of pushed him over the edge, and the flight response kicked in. So he pulled away, and when he glances back, these kids have vanished. They're just nowhere to be seen. And that sort of is typical of a lot of these accounts that have come along. People experiencing these kids, and they seem to vanish almost in the blink of an eye. They always try to elicit an invitation inside or in your vehicle or whatever it is. So, Bethel's account in 98 initially caused a few other responses to be posted on the net. People put out similar accounts that they had encountered these black-eyed beings. And then we sort of see different waves of it come along periodically. I got interested in it because I started meeting people who had physically encountered these things. And I was intrigued by the idea because when you start looking at the accounts, you'll find that these things have traits in common with a wide range of paranormal phenomena. When I wrote the book, I didn't try to convince anyone that any particular theory was correct. I just put all the accounts out there and the evidence and said, here it is, judge for yourself. You can correlate these things with alien hybrids. You can correlate them with manifestations of demons and a whole wide range of things. So we may be seeing something that, again, is part of the human subconscious, that people are perceiving some type of entity. Rosemary thinks these things are a manifestation of the Djinn. So, we may be seeing people perceive these things as this new meme of the black-eyed children. But once again, if you go back historically, you'll find various accounts of black-eyed beings.
Okay, we got David Weatherly joining us. So much more to talk about. Weird creatures, black-eyed children, and so much more, and answering your questions, listeners. With Gene and Chris, you're in the Paracast.
Are you tired of searching for great talk radio?
Something more important.
Search no more. We are the GCN Radio Network.
Graphic Converter is the image manipulation tool for the rest of us. It does not use any database. You get full control of all your files. Want to view the images of a folder? Drag it into Graphic Converter, and a powerful browser opens up to show your image files. You could use it for slideshows. You could use it to import images from digital cameras or from scanners. Need to do some image editing? You can do that too in Graphic Converter. Also print catalogs. Convert from so many formats I can't even list them. Download now to see if Graphic Converter is good for you, like 1.5 million other users. Guess what? You could save money when you buy Graphic Converter. Use the coupon code Night Owl. Use the coupon code Night Owl to get a special price for Graphic Converter. Go to lemkesoft.com. That's LEMKE soft.com. lemkesoft.com. LEMKE soft.com.
An e-cig revolution is sweeping across the country. But is yours American-made? Vaporite e-liquid by LeSig is. Manufactured in Arkansas with 100% USA-sourced ingredients. And when you buy American, you support local jobs. Vaporite e-liquid by LeSig is top quality at an affordable price. The very principle that once drove the American economy. Get great taste with no ash, tar, or smoke. You'll be wondering why you didn't make the change to Vaporite e-liquid by LeSig a long time ago. LeSig.com has everything you need, for beginners to the advanced vaping enthusiast, with a wide variety of hardware, and also imported e-liquid flavors as well. Plus, LeSig smokes the competition with fast, free, same-day shipping, real people customer service, and a 30-day satisfaction guarantee. Support our country and become a Vaporite at LeSig.com. Or call 870-525-1440. 870-525-1440. LeSig e-cigarettes for today's modern smoker.
There is only one detox product that stands out above the rest. Micro Plant Powder. And it's available only at hempusa.org. Micro Plant Powder does wonders by removing toxins from the body. Detoxification is a vital process that's extremely important for restoring your health. Micro Plant Powder is available in 8 different formulations, and we can help you choose the one that's perfect for your lifestyle. Micro Plant Powder is 100% chemical-free, non-GMO, anti-inflammatory, gluten-free, and packaged by hand in BPA-free containers. HempUSA.org wants you to be healthy, and Micro Plant Powder is one of the best ways we know to detoxify your body from head to toe, all for about $10 a month. Take back your life and enjoy living again with Micro Plant Powder. Call 888-910-4367. That's 888-910-4367. Micro Plant Powder. Available only at HempUSA.org.
For years, you've been hearing about Herbal Healer Academy and how it's remained the leader in effective, alternative, and natural medicine and education. But how can they continue to hold that title for years on end? The answer is high quality and huge selection. Just visit herbalhealer.com and shop online or request a free catalog. You're bound to find the alternative you're looking for. Did you know that Herbal Healer carries the latest, safest, and effective weight loss products? You can also count on Herbal Healer for the largest selection of safe and natural supplements just for children. And don't forget your pets. Herbal Healer even has natural mineral supplements for all your animals, including horses, cows, and birds. Take a peek at their online calendar, and you're sure to find everything you need and maybe something you didn't realize you needed. Visit herbalhealer.com and don't forget to sign up for the free Herbal Healer newsletter. herbalhealer.com, working with the power of nature.
Hello, this is Rosemary Ellen Guiley, and you're listening to the Paracast, the gold standard of paranormal radio.
Chris is trying to get on his best Djinn, black-eyed children kind of voice. What is a black-eyed children as opposed to a black-eyed pea? What does a black-eyed children sound like?
Black-eyed children.
Sounds like you're trying to channel Yoda and give him a sore throat. Ladies and gentlemen, that's Yoda with a sore throat.
This brings up another question by Wade Ridsdale, and he questions the original Brian Bethel account that kind of took off on the internet, and he wonders out loud here on forum.theparacast.com that, he wonders, has the internet and by extension the sharing of social media muddied the waters to a large extent when it comes to attempting to get to the bottom of some of these accounts?
The short answer is absolutely. And, the internet also, I think, contributes to the sort of co-creation and manifestation of some of these things. A perfect example is the Slenderman. I don't know how much you guys know about that, but I also cover that in the new book. And
you know what? Why don't you take a moment here and talk about Slenderman?
Yeah, Wade was asking about Slenderman, too, the first part of his question.
Yeah, sure. And let me back up, because right before the break, I wanted to throw in this black-eyed being thing. They have discovered a statue in Göbekli Tepe in Turkey that they call the Urfa Man. And I encourage you to go on and Google an image of this thing if you've never seen it before. It's a humanoid figure. They made the eyes out of black obsidian. So this is, a being a statue that's thousands of years old that depicts a black-eyed being. So once again, I think this is something that is passed down and gets reinterpreted by through the contemporary lens in different periods of history. So jumping away from that and into Slenderman, wow, this is a weird topic. First of all, Slenderman is an internet creation, literally. What happened was there was a forum called Something Awful, and someone posted this contest idea on the Something Awful forum, and their idea was, hey, I always like to make, paranormal themed photographs and different things and post them for people to look at and promote them. And he said, let's have a contest and create something original that has a paranormal theme and make it go viral on the internet to convince people that it's real. So when the contest started, various people were posting, photoshopped cryptids and UFOs, all types of things. Well, along comes this guy who posts a very subtle series of images and concepts. And the idea was that there was this being called the Slenderman. Now, he's depicted as a human figure that's very tall, incredibly thin, usually in a dark suit. He has virtually no face that is discernible, and these incredibly long arms. And sometimes he's depicted with multiple arms. And he started being tied to disappearances. He was tied to a strange fire that occurred at a school. The subtlety of this thing, I think, is what really empowered it. It became a sort of modern internet interpretation of the boogeyman, the creature that lurks in the closet waiting to snatch children. And it caught people's attention so much that the entire thread on the forum became just devoted to the Slenderman. And as this thing developed further, other people added to the mythos. People started posting. Someone posted a series of block prints, from woodcuts that depicted medieval scenes of this weird multi-armed figure. They said, "Oh, here's the Slender Man has been around since the medieval period in Germany. Here he is in the 1940s." So people started adding all of this historical context to this image and to this concept. Then along came a video series called Marble Hornets. Marble Hornets was was in the style of like the found footage Blair Witch type of thing, and it was this storyline that revolved around a student film being made, and the film suddenly gets stopped. The production stops, and the director acts very bizarre, and the person who's doing Marble Hornets has this interaction with him and finds out there's this weird figure that the director's terrified of, and that guy eventually disappears. So we get all these threads contributing to really the whole mythology of the Slender Man. But then some very curious things started happening because people started reporting Slender Man encounters independently of this whole thread. In fact, Coast to Coast AM one night received this frantic call from someone who had this bizarre encounter with the Slender Man, and periodically they've had other listeners call in and say, I've experienced the Slender Man. So, it's very fascinating to look at the history of this thing because we have an incredibly clear timeline of the creation of this being. Yet, on the other hand, we have people who are adamantly convinced that they have physically encountered this thing. So it's a really bizarre interaction between a developing internet mythos and, some kind of, some subconscious fear or image that people have.
Right, renaming the boogeyman. Well, the same thing is kind of occurring with the Northampton clown.
Oh, yes.
Perhaps we're going to be seeing these sinister clowns appearing around, scaring little kids and moms and grandmas and stuff, and then setting up websites.
Well, there's already a website for the Northampton clown.
My point exactly.
So, yeah, it's a really, it's a very curious thing. People are, again, tying these things into, other types of manifestations. There's a gentleman named Robin Swoop who wrote a whole book on the Slender Man. And he draws a lot of correlations between the Slender Man mythos and encounters with the gray aliens. These sort of lanky figures with long arms that, cause paralysis and so forth. So, again, we may be seeing some type of modern reinterpretation of a classical image or, energy that exists around us. And, to get back to that original question, the internet is, again, it's like all the glut of paranormal shows. It's a blessing and a curse at the same time because, you can tap a few words in Google and just get a wide range of leads for research and so forth. But then, my God, the amount of stuff that's posted on there, on the net in general is just overwhelming at the same time. And obviously a lot of it is just virtually impossible to chase down or follow up on. And, within the paranormal field, it's led to, countless reports that are anonymous and, the location's not even existed, and it might sound intriguing, but if you have no way to really pursue it or follow up on it, then it's very difficult to test the veracity of it in any way.
But that also goes to setting you to wondering there, are these things just created by people having fun at our expense, or is there some reality behind this that maybe someone out there is generating these images for a more sinister or higher purpose?
Yeah, that's a great question, and it's
maybe a wacky question, but you get my point.
Yeah, I get your point. I mean, for me personally, when I research these things, I try my best to, actually sit down and interview the people and, multiple times and really get a sense of, where they're coming from and what they're doing. I think, once you're sort of a seasoned investigator, and I'm sure Chris has had this experience too, it becomes a lot easier at a base level to know what the motivation is that someone has for presenting their account, and there's a lot of red flags that easily come up within, the spectrum of things. I mean, a great example of that is, a lot of times if I get called about a location that's haunted or, purported apparitions.
We have David Weatherly joining us with Gene and Chris. You're in the Paracast.
The GCN Radio Network, providing the world with hard-hitting talk radio. GCN. Great talk radio starts here.
First came Attack of the Rockoids, and it was a critically acclaimed success. And now there's The Coming of the Protectors. A former military intelligence man is contacted by a space woman in a dream that turns out to be a nightmare because evil forces on her distant planet are planning to conquer the Earth. This is gripping science fiction of the classic kind. Attack of the Rockoids and The Coming of the Protectors. Find out more at rockoids.com. That's Rockoids, ROCKOIDS.com.
So here's what happened. I was placing an order online. The site went down. It just stopped responding. It took hours before it returned, but I'd already placed the order with another company. If your site goes down, you could lose business. And if you have a business or personal site, you'll want to know it's easy to run and it will stay online. At iWeb, your site is hosted on one of the most reliable networks in the world. Check it out. iWeb.com. That's iWeb.com.
You are now in the crosshairs. The NSA and the FBI are treating you like a criminal and monitoring your every move. Ron Paul said recently, the evidence of the totalitarian nature of this government is on display undeniably every day. What's taking place right now is a coup and the destruction of the Constitution. Fortunately, there is something you can do about it. Learn how to be invisible, lock down your privacy, and even disappear forever. Go to privacylockdown.com to learn how. That's privacylockdown.com.
You know about RVs, you've heard about bunkers, but surviving is not recreation, and man wasn't made to live underground. Introducing Survivalist Camps, the ultimate fully functional off-the-grid survival bug-out house that's mobile, well-equipped, and custom-built to outlast any other RV or trailer. Go to survivalistcamps.com to learn more. That's survivalistcamps.com, providing your basic needs to survive. Survivalistcamps.com.
American gardeners and fellow patriots, make the right choice with your money, time, and your family food supply. Choose 100% pure heirloom seeds in the Survival Seed Vault from MyPatriotSupply.com. Why spend more? The Survival Seed Vault from MyPatriotSupply.com is only $37.95 and includes 20 varieties of pure, hardy, easy-to-grow heirloom seeds. Yes, only $37.95. That's 70% less than our competitors. You could buy 3 Survival Seed Vaults for less than one of theirs. The Survival Seed Vault from MyPatriotSupply.com includes detailed planting and seed-saving instructions and ships same day. Plus, all orders over $49 ship free. MyPatriotSupply.com is American-owned by patriots like you, passionate about freedom and preparedness. Call now, 866-229-0927. That's 866-229-0927. Or discover more emergency preparedness items when you order at MyPatriotSupply.com. Choose the original. Choose the Survival Seed Vault at MyPatriotSupply.com.
My name is Kay Swirling, and I am in the early part of my 10th decade. I want to discuss the issue of pharmaceuticals versus minerals and vitamin supplements. I remember a discussion between my mother and me. It was at that time that canned vegetables and fruits were introduced into the U.S. market. It was some time before my mother and others felt comfortable with food in cans. That was also the time when drugstores offered for sale cough syrup and aspirins and not much else. Let's fast forward to this decade, the here and now. Simple drugstores are large corporations with the message that they are the ones who have the power to cure human ills. Meanwhile, the battle continues with minerals and vitamins being the answer to human ills. Who will win the battle? I believe and hope it will be the belief in the power of vitamins and minerals over that of the toxic chemicals in prescription drugs. What do you think?
This is Jerome Clark, author of the UFO Encyclopedia and other books. You're listening to the Paracast.
So David Weatherly gets called up about possible hauntings, but is it something more? David Weatherly is author of a book called Strange Intruders. His most recent title, joining Gene and Chris in the Paracast. You want to pick up further on that question, David?
Sure. As far as red flags, when you sit down and start examining a case, the popularity of the ghost hunting shows, for instance, I find that a lot of the times, if it's a situation that is either not on the up and up, or it's really stretched to the point that, okay, you heard a couple noises. Why are you convinced that this is, the ghost of someone? A lot of times these people, within a short time into the conversation, the question will inevitably rise. Do you think this would get on Ghost Adventures? Do you think those guys would come and investigate? Could we get taps in here? And you get these situations, where it's people, they really are just looking for their 15 minutes of fame. They're thinking, hey, this is a great way to help this along and help it happen. I have a friend of mine who actually has a ghost hunting team, and about, once every 2 or 3 months, he'll get called in and his team will go in, and when they show up at the purported haunted location, there'll be a party going on. And it's, the housewife has invited all her friends over to watch the ghost hunters, walk around the house and collect evidence. And, this is usually people that are just, they're looking for attention. They're looking for their moment in the spotlight and so forth. I still find for the most part that a lot of the most intriguing cases are the ones you really have to dig for. You have to get out into the communities and interact with people and talk and sort of dig for the really good juicy stuff.
Yeah, the best ones are the ones that you hear about from relatives, neighbors, who say, this person, you're the last person they would ever contact, but I think you should know about this and somehow get this story from this person. And then you start digging, you start working on them. I've worked years, literally, to get people to fess up on really sensationally sounding cases that deserve attention.
Well, yeah, the same with me, and it's sort of second nature to me because when I started in the field, you just didn't walk up to someone and say, "Hey, has anybody around here seen a UFO?" They would have you locked up or ignore you, but you had to find a way to relate to the community and to the area that you were investigating in, and like you're saying, Chris, you hear from relatives or friends of friends, and you just follow those breadcrumbs until you get to the real core of something to find out exactly what transpired, exactly what's going on, and sometimes it's a dead end, and sometimes it's a real payoff.
My favorite technique is to call them up cold and say, "Hey, I'm Christopher O'Brien. I don't know if you've heard of me, but I've been investigating some pretty strange things around in this case the San Luis Valley. And so mentioned that I should give you a call and introduce myself. So, I figured I'd give you a call. Good talking to you. And then I'll hang up, and then I'll call back and say, hey, it's Chris again. I hear your son's basketball team's doing really good, or, what do you think of the price of hay? And I'll hang up. And I'll do this every month or two. I'll call up and finally they just break down. You never ask them what you want to know about, and invariably at some point they will break down.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's, you go into some of these little, smaller communities and towns. These people just aren't going to automatically open up and start talking to a complete stranger. You have to build some kind of, connection and rapport with them, whether it's on a casual basis or whether, like you're talking about, to slightly, unsettle them just on a subtle level and get them used to the idea of communicating with you. It works. And like you pointed out, it's where the good stuff really comes in.
Well, especially if you're local and they can call you because they know that you're a local phone call away. We have some other questions. Here's one from a first-time poster at forum.theparacast.com. He calls himself Techno I think it's Magnet, I'm not sure. And this is a question that I also have. Why do you believe the number of incidents of black-eyed children are increasing? And do you know of any other paranormal phenomenon that is increasing at the same rate?
Sure. Well, the Djinn, the number of accounts related to that has grown at a pretty rapid pace. The black-eyed children and black-eyed adult encounters have really taken off in the last, probably the last 5 years. Now, a lot of those accounts that are surfacing, they're actually not recent. I get these things almost on a daily basis, and I know several other investigators that track them too. They get accounts on a daily basis, and they're hearing different ones than what I do. So there really are a large number of these things surfacing. A percentage of them are always, hey, I just heard you on a podcast, and I experienced something like that, 8 years ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago. So it's partially that people are suddenly identifying what they experienced within the context of these more contemporary encounters. I think that once again we have to credit the internet. The rate at which anything related to the paranormal spreads like wildfire, through all the social media and so forth, I think reaches just a lot of people. And we also have to attribute it once again to the way that all of these topics have become so mainstream. Any given night you can turn on the television and find a show that deals with some kind of weird phenomenon. So, people are, there's more and more people watching and listening and relating their own experiences.
Good point. And I think that the more people get comfortable with discussing these types of things, it is going to have the effect of flushing personal experiences out, I think. And we're seeing more of a cultural acceptance of these subjects, and I think that is allowing people the comfortability factor, for lack of a better term, to actually come forward to people like yourself and other investigators. Here's a question from Polterwurst, who's one of our just past the 500 post mark at forum.theparacast.com.
Of course, we have to think whether we should get him some kind of trophy. We have people who posted over 1,000 messages, or even 4,000 or 5,000.
It's true. Well, Polterwurst has been around for about a year and a half, and he's very active. He doesn't post as often as some people, but I pay attention when he does post. He has a couple of questions here, and he's a little bit, I think, he's a little, what would the word be? He's not sure if a lot of these modern sort of, in vogue, as he puts it, paranormal phenomena are real legitimate. Like he says, the Djinn, Slenderman, and black-eyed children. He says these are more modern, sort of urban myth type, manifestations of the unexplained. But he says that because of his own experiences, he does think something like disincarnate consciousness is quite possible, and he wonders, could it be that this is what is at the root of these mythologies?
Oh, sure. Absolutely. And, I would jump in and add in that, the Slenderman, yes, is very modern, but, there's certainly a lot of historical basis for the Djinn and, even black-eyed beings as we explore that more. But his idea that this is, due to some kind of discarnate energy, it's certainly possible. But, it also sort of plays in, for instance, with the mythology of the Djinn, that these are some type of entities or consciousness that are able to assume a wide range of forms. So, if something is in an energetic form trying to get to you, it's probably going to utilize whatever works within your cultural concepts to, trigger fear or response or whatever it's trying to initiate. And, taking off on that a little bit, we also have to start to question, where is the line that we start to co-create these experiences with our own energy and our own mental attention? We start to get into the range of the tulpa, which is actually the topic of the book I'm working on now. And, we have to begin to question, okay, how are we creating this experience? Is it coming from completely within us, or are we interacting with some type of energetic consciousness?
Well, he also has a follow-up question, which I think is a good one, and it kind of sort of hits at where we're discussing here.
We'll have a follow-up question in our next segment. We have David Weatherly. He's written books about the black-eyed children and about the strange intruders and a lot more. And we have plenty more to talk about with Gene and Chris. You're in
the Paracast. America's #1 source for independent talk radio for over a decade. We are the GCN Radio Network.
Hi, this is Ted Anderson. If you'd like to listen to GCN programs on the go, I have great news. GCN has created a Droid and iPhone application, and it's free. Just as easy as going to GCNlive.com, click on the banner, and download. Before you know it, you'll be listening to your favorite hard-hitting GCN shows, live or on demand, right on your Droid or iPhone, 24/7 and on the go. So download the Droid and iPhone app free by clicking on the banner at GCNlive.com. Thanks again for listening to GCNlive.com. Again, that's GCNlive.com. We the people grow cotton, weave fabric, engrave ink, embed strips and fibers to protect from counterfeit, then carting to a private bank, having it lent back at interest, forcing taxes to service debt. This capitalism, or was Jefferson correct when stating a central bank issuing the public currency is a greater menace to the liberties of the people than a standing army? Ted Anderson, I'm placing a free silver dollar in a book that explains our monetary system. Call for your copy, 800-686-2237. It's time to understand the system. Call 800-686-2237. That's 800-686-2237.
Answer it! How can I stop these annoying collection calls?
Imagine being free from your debt without settling and with no payment plan, no negotiating or filing bankruptcy, and no attorneys. What if you could eliminate the risk from all your unsecured debt in about 90 days and keep all your money? You can. It's called Zero Debt Guarantee, and it works. There's no other program of its kind on the planet, and we guarantee the results in writing. Call now, 800-477-9256. Let our team of experts provide you with the resources to fight back, stop collection calls, and prevent and stop wage garnishments and bank levies. If you're facing foreclosure, we can help. Don't go it alone. Get free information now by calling 800-477-9256. Talk to an expert who has also completed our program. Call 800-477-9256 for free info, or go to ZeroDebtGuarantee.com. That's 800-477-9256, or go to ZeroDebtGuarantee.com.
Welcome back to the Paracast, the gold standard of paranormal radio. And now, here's Gene Steinberg.
We have Christopher Djinn O'Brien joining us on the show here. In place of the usual Christopher O'Brien, I think he's been possessed.
Well, I'm just trying to come up with new and different ways. I mean, this is the kind of show that I'm going to do a bunch of different kinds of bumpers.
Okay, well, before we get bumped off, David Weatherly joins us. Chris was going to ask a follow-up question from one of our listeners. Chris?
The original question was from one of our more skeptical posters at forum.theparacast.com. And a follow-up question that he had is, what might be the ratio of pure storytelling or confabulation to real phenomena? And I might add, misinterpretation of some natural explainable thing.
It's really hard to put a percentage on that. I mean, you'd have to look at any individual case or account, I think, to start to delve into that. And there's certainly a percentage of it. I tend more towards what you added in, Chris, mistaken identity or mistaken perception of particular events. The skeptics would have us believe that there are literally, thousands upon thousands of people running around spending their time trying to, perpetrate a hoax on paranormal investigators. And I just don't think it's that dominant in the field. There certainly is a percentage of that, but, it's not to the extremes that some people would have us believe.
I think that also the quality of the investigator and the amount of publicity that they generate tends to attract more cases that are questionable if their thinking is muddy or their conclusions are sensational. I think those types of investigators tend to attract those kinds of cases that are equivocal and sensational sounding. I think the more serious investigators who don't go around trying to create a cult of personality and tend to be open-minded but skeptical, they tend to attract the better quality cases. I don't know if you've noticed that, but I sure have.
Yeah, definitely. And, there's so many people in this field. Let's face it, the shows have led to this concept that anybody can go out and buy a camera and a digital recorder and get team T-shirts printed and they're, expert ghost hunters.
If Jason the plumber can do it, so can I.
Well, yeah, exactly. And, it's led to some pretty infuriating situations, I think. And there are even worse expressions of that. I was talking to someone just recently about this quote case that I dealt with. I got a call from a woman who was, referred to me by someone. And this woman called me, Chris, she was completely distraught. She said, my house is infested by demons. And I thought, oh, boy, here we go. And as I started to talk with this woman, she was very genuine. She was just in a terrible emotional state. She was living in a home. She had children. And I said, why do you believe this? Well, the paranormal team came in. I thought, okay, here we go. So this paranormal team came in and investigated because she thought, it was an old house and there were a couple of strange things that had happened. So they came in and they did their investigation and they ended up showing her, the quote evidence and terrified this woman. They said, your house is demonically infested. And here's the evidence. We've got this EVP recording. You hear this noise and they played this noise for her. And I listened to the recordings. And she said, this is the demons scratching at the portal, trying to get in. And here's the other evidence in your child's room. If you look closely at the wall, you'll see the number 666 has started to manifest on the wall in red. So, a couple of conversations with this woman, and I went to the house and I started looking around, and I didn't go in there looking for demons. I went in there to see, okay, what is being experienced, what's the evidence showing, what's really happening here, this woman's emotional reaction side, and so forth. So the long and short of it is that, I went in her child's bedroom and I saw this, quote, 666 on the wall. And I looked a bit more closely and I said, would you mind if I took cleaner and started removing some of this paint? And she was fine with that. So, it turned out that the landlord she was renting the place from had basically done a cheap, whitewash job on the walls. And once I started clearing this section of wall, the 666 was nothing more than a long series of scrawls with a crayon that the previous child had put on the wall, along with a lot of other
demonic black-eyed child, I'm sure.
Yeah, exactly. And, drawings of other, little animals and things like this were all over the wall. It was a kid's bedroom. He had drawn all over the walls. And, as far as the quote, scratching at the portals, once we got an exterminator in, it turned out to be nothing more than a couple of rats that were trying to nest in the wall behind the plaster. So the point is that, people, went in with a particular agenda. They wanted a cool demonic case that they could go post on their website. It's all well and good for them, but it's putting something out there that really hasn't been genuinely investigated or researched. And worse, it's terrifying this poor woman who they just completely abandoned. after they convinced her that she had a demonic infestation. So there are a lot of those types of cases that are happening. And, it's all about the agenda, I think, that people approach these things with. It's like you're saying, Chris, anybody can throw a story up on the net and say, I shot a Bigfoot.
I have an alien in my freezer. Right,
an alien in my, but I didn't bring the body back. I buried it in the woods and so forth. So, it doesn't. I'm not sure where I was going with that, but the point is that it's it's about the agenda that someone approaches these things with. I try to take a journalistic approach and just present the evidence, after I've verified it to the best of my ability, and then put it out there and say, let's look at the threads that connect these things. It's almost more important to me to look at this whole concept that, my God, we have so many of these cases that are showing up. What's behind this? Why is this happening? With any given phenomena, even after you pitch out the hoaxes and the mistaken identity, you still have a big core of cases.
Yeah, absolutely.
You have to start questioning exactly what's going on here. I mean, it's like your area, cattle mutilations. I'm sure that a portion of those can be attributed to predators, a portion to other things, but there are enough unexplained circumstances and cases that it warrants a closer look.
Well, and there are cases that have warranted a closer look. A closer look scientifically has been applied, and very definitive results have been produced from scientific testing, which the skeptics and the debunkers and people who want to believe in more exotic theories about what's behind the phenomenon, they fail to bring these cases up. And that leads us to another question, actually. I'm glad that you brought that up. Han, who's one of our fairly frequent posters at forum.theparacast.com, Harry A. Newton is Han. He says, I'm sorry this is a bit of a macabre question, but please
You're
ask
in the
Mr.
right show
Weatherly.
here for macabre questions because you've got the macabre questioner.
Well, I wouldn't call it macabre. It's just kind of body part oriented. Please ask Mr. Weatherly if he knows of any ceremonies or rituals that require or involve specific organs or parts of animals, especially cows, he adds, that could account for some cattle mutilation cases. And he says also, or alternatively, if my first question was not appropriate, please ask what the best advice or piece of wisdom he has been given by his shaman. So there's a two-parter for you.
I'll answer the second half of that first. I think that, after years of studying with different shamanic teachers, the most valuable lesson that I learned early on from those guys was awareness. Essentially keeping a very high level of awareness and just paying attention. I think if more people did that, we would find some very different manifestations in the world. The more you pay attention to your surroundings, the events that are happening, the way people are interacting with you, that's the easiest way I can encompass the concept, just by saying, a high, incredibly high level of awareness.
All right. We'll get to the next part of the answer in our next segment with David Weatherly joining Djinn and Chris. And now Chris is going to be possessed by a creature. You're in
the Paracast.
Neighbors, are you tired of dealing with a slow web hosting provider? Well, check out A2 Hosting and their screaming fast Swift server platform. They even have SSDs that load pages 300% faster than the competition. Ready to give your site a speed boost? Well, tell you what, neighbors, head on over to a2hosting.com. That's A2, that's number 2, a2hosting.com. Check out their Prime hosting account. And get this, neighbors, they're even giving you an exclusive 25% off discount for all our listeners. 25%. And remember, their Guru Crew support team is standing by 24/7, 365 days a year to answer any of your questions. Now, to get the discount, use the coupon code Djinn when you check out.
Quantitative easing, unemployment at depression levels, Europe financial system falling apart, China getting out of U.S. treasuries. At the end of 2008, the time of TARP, the national debt was at $11 trillion, gold trading around $850 per ounce. Close to 2012, the national debt exceeded $16.4 trillion, gold doubled to $1,600 per ounce. The $20 trillion threshold for the national debt is inevitable. Politicians in Washington have a ferocious appetite for spending and stimulus. What's worse, a printing press to finance. 100 years ago, we had a gold standard to limit this madness, but now you have to adopt your own gold standard. Don't be fooled with paper promises. Get Midas Resources 10 Reasons to Buy Gold free by calling 800-686-2237. Understanding the gold and silver market may be the only insurance you could have to avoiding the next economic crisis. Call 1-800-686-2237 and order your free copy. Again, that's 800-686-2237.
The National Preppers and Survivalist Expo, presented by Triton Shelter Technologies, is the only national event designated for the prepper community. October 19th and 20th at the North Atlanta Trade Center in Atlanta, Georgia. Admission is free, and the doors open at 9 a.m. Join us and learn life-saving tips that can help you and your family handle crisis situations. Special guests include Kevin O'Brien from Nat Geo's Doomsday Preppers, David Crawford, author of Lights Out, the director and cast members from the movie Lights Out Saga, and more. Special guest speakers include GCN's own Dr. Joel Wallach, along with Dr. Bones, Nurse Amy, and Tom Martin, the director of the American Preppers Network, two-time Field and Stream champion Chad Weatherford, along with many other leading experts from around the country. Join us for the country's largest emergency preparedness event, absolutely free, October 19th and 20th at the North Atlanta Trade Center in Atlanta, Georgia. For more information, visit npsexpo.com. That's npsexpo.com.
Great news, pure water lovers. BigBerkeyWaterFilters.com has a special discount offer for all GCN listeners. You can't do better than a Big Berkey for economy. For only 1.7 cents a gallon, a single set of filters can last for 5 to 10 years. There's none better than a Big Berkey for emergency preparedness as a backup water source. And you just can't beat a Big Berkey to remove dangerous chlorine, all types of fluoride, pathogenic bacteria, cysts, parasites, and unhealthy byproducts from municipal water. Berkey water filter systems are even powerful enough to purify stagnant pond water. For the gold standard in water filters, get a Big Berkey at BigBerkeyWaterFilters.com. And all GCN listeners get 5% off all ceramic filter systems. For details, call 1-877-99-BERKEY. That's 877-99-BERKEY. Big Berkey Water Filters, for the love of clean water.
We'd like to hear from you. If you have a comment or question about the Paracast, send it to news@theparacast.com. That's news@theparacast.com. And don't forget to visit our famous Paracast community forums at forum.theparacast.com.
What creature, Chris O'Brien, were you possessed by?
A medium channeling Cthulhu.
It's easy for you to say. Try to say that 5 times without, no, forget about it. David Weatherly joining us, answering your questions, listeners, as they are posted at forum.theparacast.com. David, you started an answer, and it's kind of like a multi-part question. So do you have another part?
I sure do. The
cattle parts.
cattle
what
parts.
are they used for?
Wow. Well, again, if we go back through the history of various magical traditions, we do find occasions where specific animal parts were used to varying degrees. There are, for instance, in early divination, they would sometimes take the entrails out of an animal and spill it across the altar area in order to, look at the patterns and so forth and divine what's happening. As far as more modern... Right. As far as a more modern context, really, with the whole sort of creation of Satanism in the 70s, Anton LaVey's whole wave of showmanship, along with that, we had a lot of people who started practicing varying degrees of black magic and Satanism and so forth. And really, this is all, a lot of this is modern, fairly modern creation of perversion of more traditional rituals. So, you do find some cases where these guys purport to use various animal parts for sacrifice or divination or to achieve a particular goal, to curse someone. And now, as I'm thinking more about this, I'm remembering other things. As far as cow parts, in some of the Afro-Caribbean traditions, which we would interpret as Santeria or voodoo, you will find there's a whole ritual to silence a person who is speaking against you. And the ritual involves taking a cow's tongue and nailing it to a tree, along with some other specific things within the ritual that purportedly will bind the tongue of the person and stop them from saying bad things about you.
Maybe I should have said before this, yuck alert, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah.
Well, it is October. It is October, so it's kind of fitting, I guess, we get into some of the more macabre aspects of these things.
Yeah, I've done actually quite a bit of research into this realm as well, which I will be covering in my new book, Stalking the Herd. And in Africa, you do find some pretty interesting subcultural belief systems relating to specific body parts and how they can be used ritualistically, some of which I don't want to go into right now.
Thank you.
I was trying to avoid some of the more colorful uses of certain body parts.
I kind of think here, as people are listening sometimes to this show in their cars, they download the version from iTunes. They run it in their cars, they hook up their iPhones or whatever to their car by Bluetooth, and they're listening. And then you say something really interesting like that, and they're ready to just run off the road. You think of massive epidemic of trucks and cars running off the road at something said on the Paracast. I'm thinking of the lawsuits. I'm kidding.
The African practice of female genital mutilation.
Right.
Well, sure.
That's something that you don't hear about in the West very often, but it's a very real thing.
Right. Well, and we go, to Asia and large portions of Asia that take, animal parts and grind them up and, consume them for energy and vitality and fertility and a wide range of different purposes.
That was quite politically correct. I like that. I kind of cringed where you were going with that, but
I know.
You did a good save on that one there. Yeah, the human belief systems that develop over time, subculturally around the world, really are quite fascinating. And if it's not of your culture, sometimes there's even a bit of revulsion that might be attached to it. And I really have a sense, and David, you brought this up earlier, that the very power of belief in an individual has presence. But when you combine that individual belief into a collective belief, it has even more presence and possibly power. And then when you look at the possibility that the subconscious of humanity might be manifesting belief in some collective unconscious way, then, it's really an intriguing area of study that I don't think enough attention has been brought to.
Yeah, and it's certainly a path that goes a lot further down the rabbit hole, and it's very compelling. You're talking about this interaction between not just our own subconscious, but also the collective consciousness. And we know relatively little about what humans are completely capable of. I think we've only scratched the surface of what our abilities are, and that's in part why a lot of people reach back, I think, to more ancient traditions, even if it's something as simple as meditation. There's been a whole craze of creative visualization and things like this that, really resonate with people because they're looking for paths to reach their own greater potential. You said something within the midst of that really brought this to mind, and I kind of want to go into this a little bit, and this concept of the tulpa, which really is, encompasses what we're talking about here, this whole interaction with some type of energy field that is outside of us, but also, our own consciousness and our own projections. And I'm kind of knee-deep in finishing the next book, which is on this topic right now. And one of the things I found fascinating that I relate is there's a very famous haunted site. I'm sure, most of your listeners have heard of the Myrtles Plantation. Now, the Myrtles Plantation is in Louisiana. It's purportedly one of the most haunted sites in the country. And literally thousands of people go there every year to, take the ghost tour. A lot of people go to stay and to, quote, investigate and try to catch evidence. And when you go down there and you listen to the ghost tour and you listen to the tales that are focused around the Myrtles, you will hear the story of Chloe. Now, the story goes that Chloe was a slave that lived on the plantation. She was having an affair with the master. She sort of fell out of favor. She got caught eavesdropping, and as a result, one of her ears was cut off. So she afterwards always wore a turban to cover that. Now, in order to try to get back in the master's favor, she poisoned the children of the household with what she thought was a mild dose of poison. The idea was to get these kids sick so that she could nurse them back to health and sort of be the hero and be in favor again. But she used too much poison and these kids died. So, as I said, people constantly go there and search for evidence of Chloe. In fact, there's a famous photograph. To my knowledge, it hasn't been debunked that I've really tried to find out more about this photograph. You can find it on the internet. It's a picture that purports to be an apparition of Chloe standing between the main house and the back house.
We will look for Chloe and other people. I gather there are some people listening to us named Chloe, and there are characters on TV shows named Chloe. And we have David Weatherly, and we have Chris O'Brien, and we have Gene Steinberg. You're in
the Paracast.
Are you tired of searching for great talk radio?
Something more important.
Search no more. We are the GCN Radio Network.
Graphic Converter is the image manipulation tool for the rest of us. It does not use any database. You get full control of all your files. Want to view the images of a folder? Drag it into Graphic Converter, and a powerful browser opens up to show your image files. You could use it for slideshows. You could use it to import images from digital cameras or from scanners. Need to do some image editing? You can do that too in Graphic Converter. Also print catalogs. Convert from so many formats I can't even list them. Download now to see if Graphic Converter is good for you, like 1.5 million other users. Guess what? You could save money when you buy Graphic Converter. Use the coupon code Night Owl. Use the coupon code Night Owl to get a special price for Graphic Converter. Go to lemkesoft.com. That's LEMKE soft.com. lemkesoft.com. LEMKE soft.com.
In the U.S., 1 in every 50 homes will have a break-in this year. Burglars call it smash and grab. Police call it robbery. We call it avoidable. We are Fake TV, a simple electronic device that can fool even professional burglars. Fake TV easily plugs into any outlet and simulates the changing colors of a television. To a burglar, it looks like someone must be home watching TV, so they'll likely move on to an easier target. At only $29.95, Fake TV costs less than a month of most alarm monitoring plans and comes with free shipping. Order your Fake TV by calling 877-5-FAKE-TV or go to faketv.com. That's 877-532-5388 or faketv.com. Fake TV, the burglar deterrent. We all know that Berkey Water Purification Systems are the most trusted name in water filtration. As an authorized Berkey dealer for over 6 years and serving thousands of satisfied customers, the Berkey Guy offers amazing specials for Berkey Water Filtration Systems. The Berkey Light Systems include a set of self-sterilizing and recleanable black purification elements that purify water by removing chlorine, pathogenic bacteria, cysts, and parasites to non-detectable levels and remove harmful chemicals such as herbicides and pesticides. Order the Berkey Light Systems system today, complete with 2 Black Berkey elements for only $231, and the Berkey Guy will ship your order free of charge. With the purchase of a Berkey Light, the Berkey Guy is also offering a set of fluoride and arsenic filters for only $39.99. That's over 30% off the retail price. Call the Berkey Guy at 1-877-886-3653. That's 1-877-886-3653. Or order online at GoBerkey.com. That's GoBerkey.com today.
My name's Bruno. I'm 52 years old. I've tried different protein powders over the years, and they've all tasted pretty bad. I tried One World Whey and found it to be delicious. After 10 weeks on One World Whey, my wife commented, "You have more muscles and you're leaner than when you were 20 years old." My body has changed dramatically. I'm a cyclist. Normally I'll ride 2 days on and take 2 days off. After being on One World Whey, I rode 10 days in a row in over 100-degree heat, and then I'd take another 2 servings of One World Whey, and then work out at the gym for another hour and a half. I just couldn't believe these results. My normal muscle tightness and soreness after working out are virtually gone. Don't take my word for it. One World Whey comes in single servings. Just give it a try.
For a health and taste sensation you'll love, call 888-988-3325. That's 888-988-3325. That's 888-988-3325. Or visit oneworldway.com. That's oneworld.com.
Hi, my name is Richard Dolan. You're listening to the Paracast.
Oh, yeah. You're on the Paracast, and we're exploring some fascinating stuff with a returning guest, David Weatherly, doing this for 35 years until he gets it right. You want to go on with the story of Chloe.
So we're talking about Chloe at the Myrtles Plantation. You know, on a regular basis, people are going and they're collecting, quote, evidence of Chloe. You know, people have caught EVPs that are purportedly her, photographs of apparitions or partial apparitions of Chloe, and people that work at the plantation will report seeing her or having interactions with her. But here's the intriguing thing. Historically, she never existed. The children who purportedly were poisoned and died, historical documents show they actually died of yellow fever. Now, there's no evidence whatsoever of Chloe ever having been a real person. Somewhere along the way, this story was created, and it's been passed down for years and years. And now, with the popularity of ghost hunting, we have people flooding to the Myrtles Plantation looking for evidence of Chloe and finding it. So we have to question exactly why is this happening. We get into the areas of the tulpa now, you know, an image that has had so much energy put into it from the collective
the power of collective belief,
that it begins to manifest. Exactly.
Well, one of the, I covered tulpas and the Djinn and a lot of these types of phenomena in my book, Stalking the Tricksters. And one of the most compelling figures, historical figures from the turn of the 19th, 20th century was Alexandra David Neal, who was one of the first women to go to Tibet, Western women to go to Tibet, and claimed that she actually was able to get the training, very rigorous training that it took to allow her to manifest a tulpa. And much to her dismay, she was unable to make it go away. It started getting a life of its own. Give us some other examples. Tulpas have fascinated me for years, and this Tibetan tradition is not well known in the West.
Yeah, and that particular story, that is just that's phenomenal. The woman herself is amazing. I can't believe no one has done some kind of a blockbuster movie about this woman's life. She went into the Forbidden Kingdom when it was closed to Westerners, let alone women, and she became very close to some of the lamas there and was taught this process to create this tulpa. And she sort of brought the concept back to the West during her travels when she presented that idea. And of course, she details it in her Magic and Mystery in Tibet book. But essentially, like you're saying, Chris, she created an image, and to step outside of the cultural confines rather than create something Tibetan. Since she was a Westerner, she focused on the idea of this jolly monk, sort of a Friar Tuck type of character. And it's fascinating to look at the process, because he went from an image in her mind to sort of a ghostly apparition to, a fully physical form that was walking around in the midst of the camp. And he became quite terrifying when he took on a life of his own. And eventually she had to go back to the lamas and say, how do I get rid of this thing, now that I've created it? And it was a completely different process that she had to go through in order to sort of disperse that energy and cause it to go away. But periodically, other people have looked at this concept. It was westernized when Neil brought it back to the UK and Europe, and the Theosophical Society picked up on it, and they translated it as the concept of the thought form, which is a projected form, essentially the same thing as a tulpa. They just westernized the idea. And periodically this comes up. John Keel investigated it some, and in fact, one of the most fascinating stories I cover in the book is that John Keel was called to investigate a haunting in a house in Greenwich Village. And when he went to the location, he was told by the people living in this house that they were seeing an apparition that was, this male figure with a large cloak on and a large slouched hat. And they kept seeing this thing dart around the house, and it was kind of freaking them out. So they had called Keel, and when Keel started delving into the history of what was going on here, he discovered that the house had previously been owned by Walter Gibson. Walter Gibson wrote under the pen name Maxwell Grant, and he created the Shadow.
Yeah, Walter Gibson wrote like 300 shadow novels over a period of, 10 or 15 years. He was also a magician.
Yes.
Interesting character, Walter B. Gibson.
Walter Gibson. Now, here's a phenomenal thing, and I'm sure, this blew me away when I read it, and I'm sure Chris will be impressed too. At his height, Walter Gibson was writing 2 full-length shadow novels per month.
I have to explain. Let me explain something.
It sounds like Nick Redfern. Yeah, he wrote somewhere.
Well, maybe that's where this whole fedora shadow person comes from.
Well,
maybe.
The fedora, of course, is what the Shadow wore. If you remember this not well-reviewed movie with Alec Baldwin as the Shadow, yes. He wears the fedora hat. But there's another thing to bear in mind, too, here, is that these novels, we think it's, 300 pages of shadow. These were really short novels, okay? Sure, he was writing one every 2 weeks, but they were short novels. It wasn't like a Nick Redfern book or a book by Brad Steiger, which has, like 900 pages or something.
Well, but you also have to account for, they were, somewhere between 150 and 200 pages each novel. But, Gibson was also writing articles. He wrote pieces on magic because he was a magician. He was writing somewhere in the neighborhood of 2 million words a year. But the point I was going to with that whole thing was you have to account for Walter Gibson sitting in that house, pecking away on a typewriter, writing 2 shadow novels a month, putting all of that mental and creative energy into the concept of this being, this
really
figure,
good point,
this shadow.
David. Really good point.
And when you think about the potential manifestation of that amount of energy pouring into something, it's in some ways not surprising that after he's dead and gone, that people are seeing this ghostly image. You find this periodically with some of the older writers. Robert E. Howard, who was the creator of Conan, swore that the way he wrote his novels was that the character he was writing about would manifest to him and tell him the story. So, he believed that he would see this apparition of Conan come and relate the tale to him as he sat at his typewriter and cranked out the story.
He wasn't just writing the story, he was being dictated a story, is what you're saying.
Well, yeah, because, Howard started writing, I think one of his first creations was Bran McMorrin, I believe. And when he started writing these stories and sending them to Weird Tales, and the editor, at the time said, they were really successful. And Howard all of a sudden sends a story about someone else, Conan or King Cole or something. The editor says, no, I want another story about, Brand McMorn. And Howard's response was, well, he stopped coming and talking to me. There's nothing else. There's nothing else,
But Conan was, I'll be back.
Right.
And he didn't come back. I think there was talk of having Arnold play like a 75-year-old Conan. I mean, the last film I saw Arnold in, he plays this Southwest detective. And there's one line there where someone beats him up and someone says to him, how do you feel? And he says, I feel old. And I looked at him and I thought, yeah, and you look old. I mean, this guy was, really over the hill. It's too bad that Tom Clancy isn't here. I would have wondered who gave him the stories of Jack Ryan. I can tell you some stories about Tom Clancy because I knew him very, very casually before he became very, very rich. Something that we're not. But we do have David Weatherly, who is rich with knowledge. And we have Gene and Chris. You're in
the Paracast.
The GCN Radio Network, providing the world with hard-hitting talk radio. GCN. Great talk radio starts here.
If you want to get your website online and you need reliable service, first-class service at the lowest possible price, there's only one place to go. Well, DreamHost has a special promotion with our show where they'll offer you unlimited disk space, unlimited bandwidth, one-click web apps such as WordPress, 24/7 support. You can save over $55. You want to know how? Go to dreamhost.com/radio, dreamhost.com/radio.
First came Attack of the Rockoids, and it was a critically acclaimed success. And now there's The Coming of the Protectors. A former military intelligence man is contacted by a space woman in a dream that turns out to be a nightmare because evil forces on her distant planet are planning to conquer the Earth. This is gripping science fiction of the classic kind. Attack of the Rockoids and The Coming of the Protectors. Find out more at rockoids.com. That's Rockoids, ROCKOIDS.com.
You're the kind of person who makes smart choices and is always prepared. That's why the PrepMart.com is perfect for you. Cook a great backyard meal with steam in about an hour with the Can Cooker Jr. Normally $74, on sale now for just $64.95. It's great for camping and emergencies, and batteries are on sale, up to 10% off our low prices. Right now at theprepmart.com. Great customer service you can trust. Get prepared at theprepmart.com. That's theprepmart.com.
What if you had a witness everywhere you drive? Now you can with videodashcam.com. From truckers to motorcyclists, the handy video dashcam can be used for insurance claims, accidents, police encounters, road rage, or natural disasters. Has instant screen playback and optional night vision. Get the best quality, affordable HD dash cameras available at videodashcam.com. That's videodashcam.com. Or call 855-855-2022. Always have a witness with Video Dashcam.
To thank you for being a loyal listener, we have a limited time freebie offer for you. Claim your free heirloom tomato seeds, just pay shipping, right now at 123freeseeds.com. These aren't ordinary seeds. These are heirloom, non-genetically modified super seeds that are open pollinated and can be grown, harvested, and replanted endlessly. These survival seeds are actually more valuable than gold in a crisis. Go to 123freeseeds.com and you can get an airtight storage packet of 150 super seeds free while supplies last to say thank you for being a loyal listener. First come, first served. Just cover shipping. Go to 123freeseeds.com now to see if your free heirloom seeds are still available. That's 123freeseeds.com.
Hi, my name is DeRay, suffering from migraines, having Botox injections in my head and neck to alleviate pain, costing $1,500 out of my pocket. I discovered Dr. Ortman and Gentle Touch chiropractic adjustment called Nuka. I'm migraine-free since my first adjustment. Thanks for giving me my life back, Dr. Ortman. I wish they prescribed you instead of Botox.
Thanks, DeRay. Putting the bones back in place is only half of the solution.
We design a nutritional supplement program the body can handle, actually absorb, providing nutrients, targeting the problem area. Between Nuka and nutrition, we will have you on the road to a faster and more permanent recovery. Look us up on the web at drwortman.com or call 952-303-9124. Let us help you feel better faster. Wellspring Spinal Care at 952-303-9124. Again, that's 952-303-9124. Or on the web at drortman.com.
This is Jacques Vallée. You're listening to the Paracast, the gold standard of paranormal radio.
Yes, the spiritual side of Chris O'Brien. But no leprechauns. You got a good leprechaun to bring us?
Yes.
Fountain of knowledge, and I think that remark is all wet. David Weatherly joining us. Chris, we're on the last segment of the show. That's how fast it's gone. Any questions left?
Well, this has been fun, David. Thank you so much for being on the show. I just enjoy those rare times we're able to get together in person, and when we do compare notes, it's always fascinating. I've been a real follower of your work, and we do have a question here, and this is a good one. This is one that I'm wondering about. This comes from Gogs Mackay, one of our forum administrators at forum.theparacast.com. And drumroll, please. Are you aware of any photographs or footage of any black-eyed children or shadow people or any of these kind of more modern interpretations of paranormal manifestation?
I have seen a photograph of a shadow person that really impressed me. It's unfortunately, it has not been released publicly. It was from a friend of mine who's a researcher out east, and he's just not interested in trying to become famous or anything like that with it. It's something that he got from an investigation, and it's a very curious picture. It appears to be a shadowy human form, sort of on the corner by it looks like it's almost hanging from the ceiling. It's almost Spider-Man like. So it's sort of on the ceiling and on the wall right where the two join. And that's probably one of the most impressive paranormal photographs, that I've seen. As far as the black-eyed children, I really don't put a whole lot of stock in that, simply because, a few seconds on Photoshop, you can make anybody look like a black-eyed person. And
with me, they do all sorts of things on Photoshop. There's actually a photograph of me online wearing a suit and a tie. And as Chris knows, I never, ever wear a suit and a tie. I think when my son was bar mitzvahed about 14 years ago, maybe.
Well, now, I'll tell you what I do find even more intriguing, Chris, is that some of the cases I've looked into involving these black-eyed kids, when there have been security cameras present, they often experience a weird malfunction, or there will literally be just static on the tape. It's one of these things that brings to mind Men in Black encounters, where they seem to interfere with electronic devices that are in range of the experience, and that has happened on more than one occasion. So it's
happened to me personally.
Yeah, so it's something that again we have to question exactly what type of manifestation or energy are we dealing with that disrupts those electronics in the area.
I was doing an investigation up in Jerome, Arizona. I was in the hallway on the second floor of the Connor Hotel. We had finished doing a interview with a psychic who had gone through the building and did a very good job, by the way. And while I was down taking some lights down to the vehicle, Ron, the director, had put the camera at the end of a hallway, pointing down the empty hallway, which I was going to be subsequently walking up. Right behind the camera was a huge mirror. As I was walking up the hallway, I noticed the camera was there instead of in the room where we were interviewing the psychic, and I saw the red light on. I start mugging for the camera when I got about 20 feet away, and in the mirror I saw a silhouetted shadow figure lean out from the wall and look at me, but it was behind me. I was looking in the mirror, and I thought, oh my God, we did it. It was a brand new 3D Panasonic camera. The light was on. I ran into the room and I said, we made history. We just filmed in 3D. I called it a ghost, but then thinking back quickly, I realized it was more of a shadow person. I saw no features. It was only a silhouette. And there was no doorway or anything in the hallway where this happened, about 10 feet behind me. And we couldn't initialize the footage. It was a brand new camera. This is the first shoot it had been used on. It's worked fine ever since, but we could not initialize.
Explain to our listeners, this is getting into be all this geek talk. What does initialize the image mean to regular people?
Well, okay, video cameras used to have tape. Now they're hard drive cameras. And in order, when you hit the stop button when you're on record, it says, do you want to initialize or save this particular clip? And he tried to save it, and it wouldn't save it. It wouldn't initialize the clip so that it could be saved into memory. So somewhere in that camera, on that chip, is 3D footage, not just regular video footage, but a $22,000 3D camera took footage of something leaning out from a wall behind me as I'm walking towards the camera. And I thought we'd made history. And it's still, to this day, I am so, I'm so like grinding my teeth about that. I thought, oh man, we did it.
And you know, Chris, I know the exact spot you're talking about, because the last time I was there in the corner, in that same exact location where that mirror is, you know, I had a fellow investigator with me, and I could not get my camera to operate. I went through 3 different batteries that were fully charged, and every one of them died immediately when I put it in the camera.
Yeah, well, in this case, the red light was blazing, you know, the record light. I could see it.
Right.
But we just were unable to actually save it was actually a 7-minute clip. It was the last 5 minutes of our interview with the psychic. And then he just grabbed the camera and never turned it off and put it in the empty hallway, facing down the hallway, while I was downstairs delivering gear to the street. And was on my way back up, walking down the hallway, and I saw this figure. And initially, I thought it was somebody in the hotel. This was like 10:30 at night. And I thought it was somebody in the hotel that heard me walk by and opened their door and leaned out to look who it was. And when I raced back, I mean, when I saw this figure, I instantly turned around and raced back the 10 feet, and there was no door there. Wow. So, and as it turns out, there was actually nobody in that part of the hotel that actually I could have misconstrued as being a shadow person or a ghost or whatever. So, to be honest, on the record, this is the only time I have ever seen some sort of potential shadow person, spectral figure, ghost, disincarnate energy in a human form, that sort of thing. And I thought we'd made history. We got it on 3D.
Did you think that maybe you heard in the background just faintly that laughter? It's a shadow now.
I was staring up a door. And that's something about shadow people, David, that has always kind of made me scratch my head. There's a high percentage of shadow people that are wearing a hat like the shadow used to wear. What's up with that?
Well, you know what, Chris? Once again, if you go back to, further back in history, you'll find that earlier shadow manifestations were often described as monk-like figures wearing a robe, with one of the hoods that pulls up. So we may be seeing, again, some type of cultural impression, or perhaps, whatever that entity or energy is, it's utilizing more contemporary cultural ideas.
Which may be somehow generated collectively.
Exactly.
Oh, boy. So we have channeled the memory of the late Walter B. Gibson, who wrote many of those shadow novels. We didn't channel that movie that Alec Baldwin did. We didn't channel the radio show with Orson Welles and a number of other actors, Orson Welles actually playing it for only a couple of years. David Weatherly, tell our listeners where they can find more of your stuff.
You can purchase the books at leprechaunpress.com. Gene, you were looking for the leprechaun. There it is. You can follow my work at, I have a blog at twocrowsparanormal.blogspot.com. That is TWOCROWS paranormal.blogspot.com.
Folks, if you go to the Leprechaun book site, There's a link there to his blog. You don't have to remember it. We've got one over at theparacast.com. So nothing has to be remembered. Just we offer this courtesy to our guests.
David and I will also be presenting at the Paradigm Symposium in St. Paul, Minnesota in 3 weeks.
Really looking forward to that. It's going to be an incredible event.
Looking forward to it. By the way, you can find us at theparacast.com, the forums at forum.theparacast.com. You can find the Paracast on Twitter, and you can find 2 Paracast fan clubs on Facebook, and maybe someday they'll tell us how to make it one on the same account. David Weatherly, thank you for joining us this week on the Paracast.
Pleasure as always, gentlemen. Thanks for having me on.
The Paracast, featuring Gene Steinberg and Christopher O'Brien, is a copyrighted presentation of Making the Impossible, Incorporated. Tune in next week for a new adventure in The Paracast.